Meet Gungo, our protagonist, whose life revolves around boxing. But there's more than meets the eye. Gungo's passion is evident, yet his heart is gentle, never wanting to harm anyone. When leaving, Gungo met an uncle who was innocently spitting right next to the bus. But when a bus driver confronts an uncle spitting near the bus, Gungo's gentle nature shines through. When he got angry and heroically called out to punch and kick him, and just like that, Gungo is hailed a hero for his kind actions, showing that real strength lies in gentleness. As soon as Nam Chin returned, however, beneath this hero facade, Gungo sees his mother struggling to make ends meet. It's this very struggle that drives him to enter a boxing competition, seeking a way out. It's just that the COVID epidemic is complicated. Yet, the COVID-19 pandemic complicates things, limiting the competition's attendance. But Gungo's determination remains unshaken. The fight for his family is just beginning. What will happen next in Gungo's journey? Stay tuned. Joining rookie Gungo, we meet the fierce Go Jin with his messy hair and red pants. In a stunning display of skill, Go Jin swiftly defeats his opponent, showcasing his power and precision. Another competitor, Nam Chin, also quickly defeats his opponent, showcasing the intensity of this competition. After his victory, Gungo shows remarkable sportsmanship by asking about the well-being of his defeated opponent. And now, in the fateful finals, Gungo faces the confident Go Jin, a former Marine with a fearsome reputation. Gungo exploits Go Jin's hasty attacks, delivering a powerful blow that sends him crashing down. Despite his earlier confidence, Go Jin is knocked down by Gungo's fierce punch, marking his downfall. As Go Jin lies on the ground, he imagines a comeback, but reality has other plans. In a shocking turn, Gungo delivers a powerful hook, obliterating Go Jin's hopes of victory. In the end, Go Jin sits in the dressing room, exhausted and disheartened, pondering his defeat. Exhausted and defeated, Go Jin contemplates his loss, a moment of reflection that could change everything. But his father's legacy weighs heavily on him, a shadow that follows his every move. In a selfless act, Gungo reveals he sacrificed his prize money to help his family's debts, showcasing his loyalty. Gungo's family struggles echo the harsh realities of life, a reminder of what's truly at stake. Their pasts intertwine, revealing the sacrifices made in the name of family and survival. With only 3 years in boxing, Go Jin's journey is just beginning, but the pressure is mounting. The fight isn't just in the ring, it's a battle for identity and self-worth. His father's greatness looms large, yet Go Jin feels lost in the shadows, yearning for guidance. Every punch, every setback, is a step closer to discovering who he truly is, beyond the legacy. As the story unfolds, we learn about Go Jin's background, a legacy tied to his father's glory in boxing. As Gungo and Go Jin bond over their similar ages and military experiences, a connection blossoms between these two former Marines. But the contrast in their personalities emerges, as one follows rules while the other trusts his instincts. Their backgrounds might differ, but the essence of friendship shines brightly amidst the challenges they face. Despite the initial tension, they navigate their differences and find common ground in shared experiences. Their friendship solidifies as they share a meal, a moment that signifies the deepening of their bond. As they stand together, a sense of camaraderie fills the air, hinting at adventures yet to come. Their journey continues as they plan a trip together, cementing their newfound brotherhood. In a heartfelt moment, Gungo and Go Jin confide their family struggles, revealing the weight they both carry. Through their confessions, they realize that while life is hard, their bond is a source of strength. During a meeting of wealthy tycoons, Director Hong was discussing investment in a hotel with the bank president when old Trung Myongja suddenly appeared. The two superiors smiled contemptuously and thought that he was just a heavy-duty servant who was not qualified to be here. Immediately he recited the history of the ferry, making the young man's face freeze with embarrassment, because his father had to kneel down and beg Lao for help to save his family from ruin. Seeing that, the two began to be quiet and obediently listened to Myongja talk. The old man offered to invest 100 billion in the guy without needing the banker's help anymore. In return, he wanted to build a small casino on the top floor with a pub in the basement. And the last thing is to use this place as a free life-saving point for people in need during the COVID epidemic. If he accepts those good requests, he will be ready to invest money tomorrow morning. As soon as he got in the car, the woman accompanying him knew that Lao had successfully closed the deal, so she was extremely happy. When she saw that he wanted to wipe his face, she immediately took out makeup remover cotton to serve him. It turns out that Myung-ji has a long scar on his inner cheek, just like a gangster. That night, the male lead's mother was struggling to beg for money to rent a coffee shop, but when she saw her son arrive, she quickly hung up the phone and ran to hug and kiss him to congratulate him. Gwang-ho divided the prize money and gave it to his mother and asked her to use it to pay off a debt, making the woman confused. However, Hugh-thao's son was still determined to lean into her arms and said he knew everything. So my mother was deeply moved and accepted it, and together we closed the shop and went home with little joy. At that moment, a luxury car passed him, causing him to immediately notice that the person who had just gotten out of the car was Myung-ji. A certain building. So the next day, a team calling themselves Smile Capital Company came to approach the people in that building. They aimed to capture the households there who were all struggling and doing poorly due to the epidemic, to convince people to sign a document agreeing to let their company settle all old debts in exchange for only getting back the recommended rate of 5%, which is even lower than normal customers. They painted a permanent image of themselves as a government organization receiving substantial subsidies, so everyone happily signed the papers with the company, smiling because they thought they had just found a salvation in the middle of life. One morning, Gung-ho happily went to the gym and saw that the place was closed, so he called the owner and told him to temporarily stop operations because a customer had just tested positive. The young man didn't know what to do during his break to make life less boring, so he invited Go-jin to go exercise with him. While trying to find the address, he saw a robber running past. Being an upright person who always upholds justice, he jumped up and chased that person without hesitation. Then I saw a man lying on the floor on the street and the guy in black was standing next to him. So Gung-ho quickly chased that person to a hidden corner, but unexpectedly, the opponent used electric shock pliers on him, numbing his soul. It turned out that the man lying there was the real scammer, and the girl was using an extreme defense tool. Then the girl gave the male lead an angry word, then turned cold and disappeared. It turned out that the black-clad beauty had just applied electric shock pliers. The guy's name was Hong-do. She is the precious granddaughter of an extremely wealthy library director. Even though the country was in ruins, the grandfather had a strange hobby of regularly helping miserable people with money without even taking a penny of profit. Typically, helping baby Mi Dong's family makes the baby's mother extremely grateful for the generosity that helped her child have the opportunity to continue living. Although the tycoon refused to accept the support money back because he wanted the woman to save it for more urgent matters, she was still steadfast in her desire to repay it. As a result, that night Mr. Lau quietly crossed out the little family's name from his debit book. The next morning, Hong-do went to her grandfather again to report her achievements that she had captured the bastard Se Mi Hong because he kept washing poor coal, so she conveniently confiscated his watch worth 20 million to pay off his debt. It was calculated that the scammer had a debt of only 10 million, so this bet seemed to help her grandfather make a profit. Hello treasure girl, I don't want to see my loved ones keep giving out kindness without getting any profit. Seeing the wound on her hand, the old man could not help but feel sad and worried and advised her to be really careful when engaging in danger. At the end, this rich old man called Chairman Zhang moved to look for an experienced bodyguard in the industry to protect his niece. While eating with his brother on the terrace, Gung-ho confided about the fact that he was originally a Korean representative about to compete in an international boxing tournament, but was unlucky enough to encounter the COVID epidemic, so it was postponed indefinitely. Feeling sorry for his younger brother, but when he realized that the male lead had a noble warrior personality, Go-jin also felt secretly happy. Then, the tycoon started throwing money around just a bet to see if boxer Dukon in Boom could smash a watermelon with his bare hands. My Ong-ji's wife did not hesitate to spend a lot of money to make this party even more fiery. Suddenly, someone received a call from the mayor, causing the noisy room to immediately fall silent. He was the head of the North Department and informed the old man that the mayor had officially supported his package. So he immediately gave his subordinate 3.7 kilograms of gold as an extremely lavish birthday gift. Mr. Di cleverly let out his words as if he wanted to force the officer to stick with him for a long time so that both sides could progress further on the path to power. The person who originally had a $3 salary saw gold. Immediately his eyes lit up. He nodded in agreement and then shook hands to congratulate him warmly like family. And that entire scene was recorded by the camera without missing a single frame. Late at night, back school building was rebuilt, but he still carried the broken gold to the car like he was carrying a treasure. Inside, he began to question Congressman Seo's plan to suppress the building. They planned to send 15 masked men wearing suits there to force people to go elsewhere. And that building is where the poor male lead's mother's coffee shop is located. Although she was very frightened by the aggression, she still firmly said that she would report to the police, causing the debt collector to temporarily withdraw. The mother immediately called her son to report that a stranger had come to her hometown to destroy her shop. Before he could withdraw his words, the evil old man's henchman rushed in and mercilessly destroyed the cafe's railings. Hearing the news of Holguo's capture, he immediately rushed back, but was blocked by the other Lotus group, making it difficult for him. The crazy guy rushed into the crowd of thugs to execute justice like a god. He single-handedly fights to the death with villains like an action movie. Yet, one by one, they just collapsed under the male lead's iron fist. Seeing that scene, Jun Minute was so scared that Jun couldn't stop shaking because he was so scared. Seeing that his mother was still safe, he immediately grabbed the henchman's neck to settle the matter. At that moment, my Ongjie appeared and loudly announced that his mother was in debt to his company and had to pay a heavy price. Yet the guy was not afraid at all and even insisted that the old man compensate him for the shop. So he ordered Bum, a punching machine with a battle-hardened face, to deal with the opponent. Although he is also a martial artist, that punching machine is truly a worthy opponent with amazing strength. So, the male lead still stubbornly stood up to respond to the painful blow to his opponent. This made Bum so angry that he repeatedly beat him to the point that he passed out in extreme pain. It wasn't until the old man signaled the forest to stop that the punching machine finally let go and spared its life. Ongjie Noodle seemed quite interested in the young man's stubbornness, so he asked him to join her army, but the only response was Gungo's contemptuous spit at the evil man. So he coldly cut a long cut on his cheek as a weeping warning to those who dared to oppose. Episode 2. In the end, Gunyu was able to keep his life, but there was a deep mark of 30 stitches on his cheek. Although he was advised to have cosmetic surgery to avoid scars, he had to refuse because he was out of money. Seeing his brother in tatters, Go Jin was furious and wanted to report the crime immediately. However, Mr. Mai and Mr. Gi threatened that if he called the police, the male lead's mother would be in danger, so this plan had to go bankrupt. As for the contract, the family must pay 10% of the principal every week. They tricked the signer with extremely small handwriting, causing the mother to pay interest to the child, and sooner or later the house would be mortgaged. In a situation where they were penniless, the two brothers went out to eat stir-fried pork because they couldn't find the money to live and live luxuriously. While his brother went out to answer the phone, Gunwoo also called home and told his mother to rest so he could go home and clean the restaurant. At this time, he accidentally heard Go Jin running around borrowing money to help him pay, making the male lead so emotional that he sat sobbing on the dining table forever. At that moment, my brother received a text message inviting him to the office to meet a talented big brother. As soon as this person walked by, he immediately knew the Smile Capital Company's trick, so he offered to give Gunwoo 100 million at an extremely low interest rate. In exchange, the two had to accept being hired as a debt collector for him for a year during the COVID epidemic. Because of his honest nature, he did not want to be the big brother of Jang Ho, so Nam Chin flatly refused, even though he knew that if he could not repay the debt, he would lose his identity. Respecting his younger brother's decision, Go Jin thanked him and left. This action made the other brother angry and tried to grab him, but seeing Go Jin's serious expression, he had to let go and let them both go. Meanwhile, Hongju is secretly following Jun Minute. Suddenly she caught him trading farm money and discussed stealing houses from homeless people to start a company. The urgent situation forced her to sit next to a stranger's table to clearly observe the movements of this henchman. At that time, at the capital UOC Mo company, there were several young men who applied for bodyguard jobs, but were all kicked out by Mr. and, the recruiter, for being impatient and deceitful because they were only interested in Marines. So when he received a phone call from Gojin, Mr. and was as happy as he had found gold. Right after that, the guy with shaggy hair came to meet his senior to find a chance to change his life. Hearing that President Choi at the library was looking for bodyguards with absolute loyalty, the older brother decided to match the duo right away because the brothers' standards as Marines were too standard. After leaving their identification numbers, the two left. On the way, the male protagonist recounted his feat of defeating a dozen guys by himself, but only Mr. G's punching machine was enough to defeat him. The two started working on debt collection to earn money to pay their mother's debt. At that time, the granddaughter came back to report to her grandfather about old Zemi, who was hot-shouldering everywhere to give his life to the smiling capital company. She showed him Junmin's photo, but her grandfather decided that old Zemi was just a pawn in a fraudulent scheme to usurp tens of billions of gold 20 years ago. Although Mr. Lao was very worried and advised his niece not to get involved and take risks, Mr. Jun was still determined to act on his own terms. The next morning, President Choi sat in the car looking at the male lead's profile with a face full of excitement. However, his assistant was worried that Han Wu was too inexperienced in the industry for the role. So he quickly suggested Go Jin's profile because this shaggy-haired guy already had a long history of fighting. The assistant enthusiastically advised the boss to take this pair of cards as well, but Mr. Lao still wanted to personally meet Nam Chin first, so the two brothers went to the restaurant together at the invitation. Wherever they sat, the chefs there stopped Go Jin and only allowed Han Wu to enter the audience. Looking at the winning chefs, he immediately understood that these were all real experts, not just average. Meeting President Choi, the male lead bowed very politely and was introduced to him about his zero-interest job to help poor patients. Through the conversation, the truth came out that she was not his biological niece but the only relative left in his life, so he wholeheartedly worried about her like that. Chairman Choi extremely trusted Gunwoo's steadfast eyes, so when he heard him honestly open up about his difficult family situation, he sympathized even more because he himself did not have a happy home. Finally, the two brothers left the restaurant in a happy mood because they were sure that Nam Chin had a job. At that time, Go Jin stopped by his younger brother's house to eat and was thanked by Nam Chin's mother for her kindness to her son. Suddenly, Chairman Choi's people came knocking on the door, making Gunwoo want to fall over when they brought 100 million golf to pay advance salary for 2 years of work. He said that tomorrow at 10 o'clock you will start your mission and the office address will be sent later. Left alone, the male protagonist burst into tears because he was touched by the kindness of the rich man who helped him in times of disaster. And the Gunwoo family said that thanks to Go Jin, they were able to find a job as a bodyguard for the tycoon and then gave all that huge amount of money to their mother to manage her debt. Seeing her filial son, the mother burst into tears because she blamed herself for affecting his son's future. After finishing the meal with his mother, he turned to thank his good brother, creating an extremely warm atmosphere. Old insect My Ong Gi was leisurely playing golf and teaching the Jiangdu driver a few tiring morals after just brutally attacking the male lead to regain his dignity in front of his juniors. When he arrived at the bar, Laro was warned by his wife about the eldest son of that rich group. He knew that these tycoons always had their backs, so he still acted normal. But when he heard that young Master Hong also brought along his senior from the current police academy, he immediately told driver Zhang to be patient at all costs before getting into the drinking party. In the VIP room, the young master and his cousin began to juggle, offering wine like water to force the old worm to drink. He even insulted My Ong Gi right at the banquet table, knowing that he was not the benefactor who saved his family as he had been claiming for a long time. His face was in pain, but he could only laugh it off and quietly go out to drink that damn wine. Because the owl was warned to be dead, Lao ordered Jiangdu and the boom punching machine to find something deadly to turn the bet on the guy with no skin. The next morning, Gan Yu and Mr. and with shaggy hair went to meet President Choi at the library to apply for a job. Seeing the two young men arrive early, Mr. Lao was very pleased. Go Din began to express his sincerity, making the chairman admire him. However, he also stipulated that if his niece Hong Ju was not satisfied, the two brothers must return the advance payment and pack up immediately. Hearing this, the male lead was worried because he had accidentally used the money to pay off the debt. So the rich grandfather gave the two of them a black card to go out to eat and told them to always protect each other. While visiting the library, the duo discovered book covers filled with cash. As for Guan Wu, he realized that his feisty niece was the person he had encountered before. As soon as they met, Gosen fired off a series of greetings, but was doused in cold water when she declared that she hated trees and hated people who argued like the guy with the shaggy hair. She's still attractive, but his ways are as flirtatious as the shoes she's wearing and chase away the guy. Seeing the tense situation, the male lead knelt down and honestly told the story that he owed the company his smile and needed this job to repay Chairman Choi. Touched by the sincerity, she invited Woon Woo out to eat and revealed that she had been searching for the goat Scammer Emung for the past half a year because he took advantage of her grandfather's kindness to roll up the money and disappear. Through the story, Nam witnessed immediately realizing that the person involved was Myong's henchman Jun Minute. So that night, the trio decided to go undercover to see how many people's identity cards they robbed in one night. They witnessed how they disguised themselves elaborately and then used fake lips to lure poor people into submitting their identification documents. Even when they were discovered by their former victims, they even beat them up and left their faces distorted. Seeing the unforgivable discontent, Nam Chin got mad and rushed forward to carry out justice even though Mr. and Go Jin did everything he could to stop him. Episode 3. Nam Chin alone entered the river to attack the Lotus Group, causing the leader to begin to see his face as familiar. Hansu panicked and pulled out the hot product to defend himself, but before he could do anything, Go Jin rushed in and kicked him to the ground. Out of concern for the victim's life, Hanwoo decided to call an ambulance even though his brother warned that this would be extremely complicated. Immediately after that, the two called Hongju to report the situation, but as soon as she heard that old Jamie had escaped, she was furious. The black-clad beauty scolded Nam Chin for meddling in money matters, and then hung up without letting him explain a word. Seeing that his younger brother was unfairly blamed for his kindness, Go Jin had to call and beg to make her agree to let the two brothers go to the library to meet. Nam Chin still wishes he didn't understand why he did a righteous deed and his brother had to apologize. So the shaggy-haired guy explained that although he was not morally wrong, he had violated the rules in terms of work, so it was best to be gentle with him. As soon as they met, without any respect, they fired both of them on the grounds that they had pulled the strings and caused trouble. Faced with the tense situation, the male lead stood up and announced that he would find a way to return the money to President Choi and then showed her the long scar on his face. He affirmed that he did not want to become as bad as the person who caused this injury by neglecting the lives of others. After speaking, he returned the hat to her and quietly left. Outside of the family's mansion, my younger brother was going to find another job, but unfortunately the COVID epidemic caused the shops to close early, making both of them hungry. While the two brothers were still teasing each other in the midst of hunger, they suddenly received an apology text from their partner along with an appointment to go back to work tomorrow. So the two young men hugged each other with great joy, not knowing that the personable niece was smiling and observing the whole warm scene through the camera. As expected, after being alarmed, Jemmy went to his boss, Juanmin Taesai of the Old Worm. As soon as he heard the report, the boss suddenly threw a tantrum in his junior's face. Because of debt, Vosaku confessed to his master that he was closely followed by a mysterious group wearing a black cat hat, and was then questioned harshly by Juanmin to find out where he borrowed the shoulder. Meanwhile, the two Gojin brothers began to tell the boss what happened in the pedestrian tunnel. It is known that for each fake account they earn 50 million. A dozen of them in a foggy night is a nice 500 million in their pocket. No matter how much we followed them, we knew they had been practicing like that for half a year. Of course, she can't report the crime, so she plans to find parties for the role of being cheated by XEMI Ang to get her money back and get a commission. While thinking, Hongju realized that the scammer had led his boss to find the place. The group quickly closed the library door tightly for protection. Seeing this, Jun Minute began to order his juniors to continuously kick the rolling door. He couldn't destroy it for a long time, so he decided that this place was as solid as an iron bond and needed heavy equipment to deal with the pot. He even stared at the camera as if challenging before leaving. The group began to deduce why their whereabouts were revealed to avoid the same mistake. It turned out that old Jamie Ong had come here as money, so he knew the Gojin brothers' connection with the library. Hearing that, Hanwoo realized that the group could be identified by the black hat with the red cat because he had also seen her wearing it. Suddenly, the chairman appeared because he saw the tycoon's cars wandering around. Seeing the unstable situation, the niece explained that the group was following the noodle goat because she was the only one who could catch the audience. This time Hongdu stood up to defend the two bodyguards, causing his grandfather to express his disappointment. Hearing this, the personable granddaughter also expressed her disappointment that her grandfather intended to ignore the incident. He also asked the male lead to remove the bandages to show him what the loan sharks had done. When asked, Woonwoo honestly told the story of the company owner's smile that was so cruel to him. After letting the children leave, the grandfather immediately asked someone to investigate to see if the person behind it was the evil guy or not. The three brothers went out and started dating, using their grandfather's body to eat a barbecue buffet. Here, Godin diligently explained to the babysitter about the close friendship between him and his younger brother. Of course, Hongdu listened and evaluated but did not understand that relationship very well. As soon as Wongo brought the meat, he discovered that Mr. and had not even turned on the stove. So there was a scene where she sat down and watched two bodyguards fight because the male lead never grilled when the kitchen wasn't hot enough. While waiting for the group to chat about Hongju's relationship with President Choi, it turned out that she had been diagnosed with spinal cord cancer at the age of 8 and was cured at the age of 10, but her father also passed away at that time. She had to go through many orphanages. One girl didn't meet her grandfather until she was 17 years old, who is also the owner of the last place she took refuge. Since meeting him, she was taught a lot and then decided to follow him. Through this meal, the three married people became much closer like family. When leaving, The little boss said she would discuss the matter with him, but he dared to go to the library. Meanwhile, his eldest son was driving a car and planning to build a hotel, while in a far corner Mr. 11 was also ambitious about a rooftop casino with a revenue of 1 billion golf per year. He knew that the tycoons in the country could not go to Macau to gamble, so this was a good opportunity to take over the hotel when it was very valuable. Ong Gi Noodles clearly knew that when Jiang Du brought back the weakness of the young master of the Hong family, they would have to be willing to spend 100 billion, but right now they were still 50 billion short. So the old man ordered Jun Minute to collect debts and sell all valuables to collect the remaining money. When the eldest son Hong went to wash the car, he fell into the trap of Lao Trung's juniors and was so burned by fire and smoke that he had to faint and crawl on the ground. Because the owner of the Gaza store cooperated, Jiang Du came to repay the favor and then went inside to meet his prey, who was in a miserable condition. The young master immediately recognized his acquaintance, but now that he was in a lonely position, the driver chastised him for daring to humiliate boss Myongji. Jiang Du forced the eldest boy to strip naked, but he didn't want to, so Boom let him lie on the floor so that others could continuously pour water into the humus because he wanted to preserve his life, so the family member refused to accept all the humiliating demands. Finally, the evil old man Myongji received video evidence to officially capture this overbearing person. The old worm Myongji possessed an iron lock so secure that he had to use a wrist vein scan to open it. Then he and the Boom machine climbed into the bright red supercar and drove out of the tunnel. Finally, these two guys found a seaport full of containers. The old worm was always confident because he had overheard how to hide Chairman Choi's gold slush fund. When the iron door opened, the inside was filled with broken pieces of gold, just like the design in the old librarian's office. Ong Gi Noodles was extremely proud of this treasure, so she just jumped up and smiled happily. Each gold bar here is worth up to 500 million golf, so Laro carefully planned to install people in Vietnam so that if something happened, he could grab his wealth and flee there immediately. With that huge amount of assets, he promised that Bum could live with him like kings for the rest of his life. Chairman Seelan also learned that the Myongja they knew was indeed the CEO of the Smile Capital Company. Hearing that news, Mr. Choi was stunned and remembered the past, when he decided to dissolve the company because of his heavy role. Myongja was working for him at that time. He watched Mr. Choi's end very attentively. While he was resting, he received a phone call from the security guard reporting 2 thieves entering his office. It turned out that the Boom guy in there was urging the locksmith to quickly destroy the killing. As soon as they opened it, the two quickly took money from Mr. Choi's deal. Luckily, the security guard kept the machine for Mr. Choi. They did not leave the building, so he borrowed the guard's baton and went upstairs. Of course Guy Bum couldn't escape and was taught a lesson by Mr. Choi. Old Farquhar wanted to escape but also ate a stick. Then he was grabbed by Mr. Choi to interrogate who sent him there. Because the entrance is hidden, there is one, the name that sneaked up on Mr. Choi. He acted very decisively with continuous blows to defeat him. That name is none other than Mr. Myong Gi, and the scar on his face was made by Mr. Choi. Trung Bum was the one who took down Mr. Choi, causing him to fall into free fall, and that was also the cause of his paralysis. Straight Bum was very scared when he did that, but Myongji calmed him down, so Mr. Myongja burned down that room as a traitor. Because of that past, Mr. Choi met Hongju and advised her to stay away from Myong Goat and move the library. He just wants Hongju to be at peace because he is old. The next Christmas, the niece and her 2 brothers went to the butcher shop to eat. When surprised by the sight of the restaurant being vandalized because the owner couldn't pay him back in time, he called the debt collector to advise him to be gentle because he still let the other girl do business. But this guy recently got burned by someone for 500 million, so he had a hard time throwing it. When everyone heard it, they immediately knew it was all made by Mr. Jemmy. The group decided to just capture him and hand him over to the people he tricked. The commission is divided equally among the 3, and anyone who wants to help her cellmate can help. So that night the group went into action. GIMI's intelligence officer saw a car parked near him and turned off the engine, but no one came out. He immediately called his boss to let him know that they were coming. so the boss reminded him to follow the plan in 2 hours. After waiting for a while, the whole group saw the car coming to pick up Gemi, so he followed, not knowing they were about to be caught in a trap. Gemi, his grandfather, enjoyed going down to the cellar, and the two brothers followed. Then when he saw that the two brothers were worried, he immediately called the two brothers out. Up there, Hongju also saw a group of gangsters coming. She immediately called her grandfather to tell her they were in danger. Indeed, in the cellar, the two brothers were surrounded. At that time, the male lead took off his mask to punch each other to relieve suffocation. Episode 4. He crashed straight into Lola's car, then accelerated and flipped their car sideways. Because I stepped on the accelerator too much, the car stalled suddenly. So the two brothers were deceived painfully. After being suddenly attacked by the man, Mr. Choi had to run away with the driver, only to painfully hear that Myongji had established a company with his own money and debt papers. He regretted that he should have been the one to eliminate him when he was the one who taught him. But in the past, Mr. Choi did not have enough courage to deal with him, so now he is determined to start over. As soon as she withdrew her words, Jang Dong received news that the young group was violently attacked by Myongja's people. When Mr. Choi heard that, he only cared about the children's safety and that the money would not be lost. Neither did he. Grandpa is sure that America has a separate hospital for the Lotus because bringing them to the hospital will usually result in being reported to the police. The children began to rush to transfer the remaining money inside when Uncle Jang Dong came to pick them up. The uncle especially praised Gojin for his bravery and told him to definitely go to the restaurant tomorrow to eat a reward meal, not to be sad about being rich, and to apologize to his grandfather because he had lost all the money and gold in the murder. But he did not let out a scolding, but only worriedly asked Han if his niece was injured or not. Witnessing that immense affection, her tears kept welling up with emotion. Boom was blinded and tried to escape. Of course, he also managed to laugh out loud and staggered away in a state of exhaustion. At that moment, Uncle Dung Dong appeared again to silently monitor the situation. Indeed, Uncle Dung Dong saw Bum being taken to the hospital by his juniors in the early morning. He was mostly stable, but his left eardrum was seriously punctured after the beating. Jang Do was equally miserable when he had to drag himself to see his boss to ask for a chance to correct this case by hunting down the children's license plate numbers. After that, Old Trung ordered Jun Minute to be chased out to talk privately with Jang Do. He loudly reminded and corrected the driver after Bum was left alone in the middle of the battle. He also ordered him to follow Juamin closely because he knew that he had a cowardly nature, so he could easily betray him. Then he finished with a cruel plan to block the road and send him off first to clear the way for the next dirty plots. One morning, while returning from jogging, Mr. Choi confided in Gun Woo. He was happy to see that his cold nephew had become happier since the two brothers arrived, so he thanked him. He also generously erased Gunwoo's 2-year advance salary as a worthy reward for protecting Hongju and transferring the money for him. He affirmed that Gunwoo no longer owed him anything and wanted him to take his mother to open a beautiful cafe on Jeju Island because he would invest the money. Hearing that, Gunwoo also sincerely thanked him and affirmed that he wanted to help him capture Myongji because he wanted to repay the favor. Seeing the sincerity of this young man, he smiled and agreed. That night, the group was treated to a delicious meal and coffee by Mr. Jang at the restaurant. In contrast to his two younger siblings, Go Jin felt that the fish was completely different from normal fish. He carefully analyzed the flavors, making Uncle Jang laugh with delight. Uncle Tam confided that from now on, he had a plan to send the big guy away and capture the book-eyed guy so that his F would have to open his mouth and tell everything. Finally, send Myongji away with his dirty company. While discussing a tense matter, Uncle Dung Dong came to join Zom. At this time, the whole group knew that Uncle Jang Dung would directly confront Myongja to avenge his brothers in the past. The children decided to work hard to help their uncles take action until the end. Tonight you guys will attack by separating and acting at the same time to hope for great success. Apparently, the two older brothers didn't know how to ride a motorbike, so they had to follow Uncle Jang, and Hongju, because he knew how to ride a motorbike, decided to follow Uncle Dung to coordinate. Knowing that this girl was extremely passionate about motorbikes, Uncle Dung took her to a famous large bike shop. The uncle chose a very suitable and cool motorbike for Hongju. The two of us started practicing our target shooting skills while riding the motorbike at high speed. On the other side, Uncle Jang also started intensive training for him and his nephew to become real soldiers, from how to hold goods to how to take the right path in the most effective and fatal way. Even though Uncle Dung and Uncle Dung were secretly following the trail of those people, at that moment, Uncle Dung Dung's phone rang from his pregnant wife, but because of the big situation, he suppressed his heart and decided to refuse to listen. As soon as Jun Min's white car arrived, Uncle Dung immediately signaled action without any hesitation. As soon as he saw Dung Minute getting out of the car, Uncle Dung rushed to give him a sweet sugar that made him unable to react. But just as he was about to leave the parking garage, a group of aggressive thugs were waiting in ambush. He blocked the way and beat him up. Having a premonition that something bad was going to happen to his uncle, he immediately applied the knowledge he had just taught him to rescue him. She wrote and controlled the motorbike while swinging her hand to knock down every guy blocking her way in an extremely professional manner. By the time they met Uncle Dung again, the two had already beaten those henchmen. The two uncles and nephews coordinated well and officially successfully defeated Dung Minute to avoid disaster. That night, as soon as Gai Bung appeared, he beat up the group of juniors who were playing cards just because they were not allowed to greet the priest. He did not know that Uncle Zhang and his two brothers had been quietly approaching outside the hospital for a long time. In the car, Uncle Zhang sternly warned that if he got inside and he told him to run, he must immediately retreat and not disobey. When the two of them heard that, they just remained silent and didn't answer, which made him angry. Uncle Zhang really doesn't want the two of them to commit too deeply because of their love and then affect the open future ahead. Uncle Zhang received the phone call and he and his two brothers quickly got out of the car and went straight to the hospital. The uncles and nephews, wearing tight masks, entered the elevator and immediately encountered Zhang Du, who had just entered, but he did not recognize him. So the children and grandchildren immediately changed direction and ran down the stairs to chase him closely because he accidentally dropped the bag of food. So his teammates sensed that it was difficult to escape. So Go Jin volunteered to stay one-on-one with him to cut off his teammates. As for Uncle Zhang, he beat Zhang Du to death right in the fire escape. Finally, the uncles and nephews succeeded in dragging him out of the hospital. While Mr. Choi was engrossed in aiming at the iron spike full of gold, he received a text message informing him that he had captured the head. Luckily, my uncle and nephew put him on a turtle cart and asked the two brothers to find a bucket full of salt water, thanks to which the brothers were reunited. The group secretly thought that Uncle Dung must have said goodbye to Jun Minute, so the space was a bit quiet and full of atmosphere. Grandpa, who was on his way, also called Zhang Dung to tell him that he was about to arrive, so he asked him to wake him up first, but he just wanted Hongju to witness this fierceness with his own eyes. So when the three of them brought salt water in, Uncle Zhang called Hongju back to watch the scene on the chairman's orders. The left group had to witness the scene of Zhang Du having salt rubbed into the wound and screaming so pitifully that it tore their hearts out. Therefore, he still determined not to say a word, so he continued to eat the bait and salt mercilessly. Anyone who saw that scene had to make faces because it was so terrible. Her teachers couldn't bear it anymore and had to run away and throw up, so the male lead quickly followed to see the situation. Coincidentally, Grandpa Choi had just arrived. Without lulling him, he immediately ran to ask him why he forced him to witness this cruel thing. Hearing her grandfather say bad things, she felt extremely hurt and left. Mr. Choi had to rely on Gunwoo to always protect the remaining people. Then he taught him the most basic things to lead a strong organization. Happy, Mr. Choi also sat across from Jangdo to question the loyal person and understand him best. He knew that Jangdo worked for him only for money and his position in the police. If he was unlucky, he would take the huge salary he received and run away and be done with it. Mr. Choi began to launch a plan to divide Mai and Mr. Gi's trust, forcing him to personally send the driver away. When he began to tremble in fear, Mr. Choi promised that if he was on his side, he would take him to a safe place where the old worm would never find him. After my Mr. Gi leaves with his dirty company, Zhang Du will be able to change his life in a safe place with generous medical expenses. Because he agreed to cooperate, a dramatic recorded interview took place. This driver declared that he had been my Ong Jiai's henchman for 5 years with the task of ensuring that Lao's illegal acts were not punished by the police, and at the same time doing all the dirty things that Lao requested. He admitted that he had threatened the corporation by filming the blackmail when the young master was naked and had to cover his body. Zhang Du used this despicable trick with up to 50 people, and all the hard drives containing the videos were hidden in Lao Trung's bedroom. The conclusion is that genuine goods can only be opened with the fingerprint of the wrist. If there is any problem, he can destroy all the items in the link through a phone. Team leader Dung is the leader of Lao Mai Ong Jiai's mob, and is also the one who specializes in cleaning up the scenes of deaths caused by Lao Mai. Because he has confessed everything, Zhang Du will be taken to the hospital and wait until the matter is finished before being flown away to escape. The last word he asked Zhang Du was where the old insect's gold was hidden, but he was willing to die because only the boomer could be trusted by him to reveal it. In another development, old Myung-ji saw his driver being taken away. His Juin-min was also unconscious, so he immediately ordered to investigate the license plates of those who dared to come to his house to cause trouble. Episode 6. The two brothers quietly followed their two seniors and left in the car. At this time, the uncles began to explain in detail that Mr. Myung-ji would find a way to connect his casino with the company for his role. Because the gamblers, once they have made a lot of money, will need money to bet on red and black cards. Because they received an invitation to drink from a chairman, all four of them will go there to have a great meal. On the other side of the car, Mr. Choi nervously told Hongju that in the past, it was Myung-ji who extorted 20 billion from his superior. At the same time, he also suggested that if he got that money back this time, he and his nephew would invite Go-jin and Gun-woo to travel around the world. The thief asserted that he was the legendary Choi Tae-ho and would freely buy everything his beloved niece liked. Mr. Choi's faction and the three children met again and began to discuss important matters. They understood that they had to capture his hard drive at all costs to attract more allies to their side. Because the longer this war lasts, Mr. Choi's side will be at a disadvantage. Seeing that the situation was too tense, Go-jin proactively stood up to stir up the atmosphere to ease the heaviness. Then everyone raised their glasses and happily toasted. Everyone seems to have deep feelings for each other, just like a real family. After drinking, the two brothers had to carry their Gosen up to their room because of the crime of drinking too much to the point of being drunk. Uncle Jang and Dung still sat and confided under the chair. At that time, Uncle Dung shyly revealed the good news that he was about to become a father. Hearing that, Uncle Jang immediately urged his younger brother to leave early, leaving him alone to clean up the battlefield. He also generously gave money to his sister and told him to buy more meat to nourish his pregnant wife at home. Meanwhile, Gun-yu went down to meet Mr. Choi and heard him open up more about his past. He recalled the time he visited a monk ceremony and accidentally found a tiny child sleeping in the corner because he was afraid the child would be cold. So he thoughtfully took a towel and covered her until she woke up and realized he was her father's friend, then burst into tears. The teacher of the monks was lonely. He ordered someone to order the most beautiful flower room and sent 10 people to guard solemnly until the monks were brought. He even carefully told her to take care of her food and drink, but he couldn't understand why that poor father chose to log out. It turned out that the funeral that year was that of Hongdu's father. At the same time, Uncle Jang and Uncle Dung went to investigate and heard neighbors praising her father as the most gentle and hardworking person in the neighborhood. At the same time, they angrily blamed the mob for forcing the man into the street, and the direct attacker was a tall, muscular man. At this time, they bitterly discovered that the people who had been supported by Mr. Choi without profit for a long time were all harassed by Mr. Myung-ji. Mr. Choi was extremely sorry for himself because his tolerance in the past had allowed him to harm so many people. Seeing that, Gun-woo was there to comfort him a lot, touched by the young man's kindness. He promised that when everything was over, he would open a boxing gym for him and give his mother a coffee shop as she wished. However, the old boy sat in the room waiting for the evil god to come to him, his heart shaking with fear. He quickly called his brother Gangzong for help, but as soon as Mr. Myung-ji walked in, he understood everything and snatched the phone from his hand. On the other end of the line, Gangzong heard his voice and cursed bitterly, but the more he cursed, the person who had to suffer the punishment was his noble younger brother. Having run out of options, Gangzong had to suck on soapberry as a sweetener to help Myung-ji handle the lie. Myung-ji told F. Gangzong that he had to find the whereabouts of that license plate within 5 hours to find a way to say goodbye to him. Otherwise his dirty video would be taunted all over the internet. After F got the password for his eldest son's phone, Laro coldly left and began to arm himself with defense weapons to prepare for the cruel plan. Because his younger brother's life and honor were crying bitterly, Gangdong had to strain his eyes at surveillance screens across the streets to spot the car. At nearly 3 a.m. Gangdong finally found the license plate information and immediately passed the address to Myongji when he was gathering a powerful army of gangsters. The whole group of them went to the address provided and destroyed the fence to go straight to where Ju and Min had been taken. One guy even saw the wedding photo of Uncle Dung and his wife. My Mr. Di cruelly ordered that Chairman Choi be dealt with first, and then driver Jang Du's turn, while his subordinates quickly found his ID and went to Mr. Dung's apartment building right before dawn. They pretended to be people downstairs with leaks to trick the wife into opening the door, but the next day, before she could open all 3 layers of locks, Uncle Dung woke up. Looking through the door, he saw a dense crowd of Lola, so he quickly took his wife inside and told her to report to the police immediately and absolutely not to open the door no matter what happened. While his wife cried out of worry, Uncle Dung quickly used every solid item in the kitchen to set up a solid defense system. Lola's group began to smash the window and rushed in like moths, leaving him alone to fight against dozens of aggressive men continuously targeting him. Fighting without much effort left him injured to the point where one corner was painfully distorted. At that moment, Myung-ji appeared and coldly forced him to reveal Uncle Jang's hiding place. Otherwise, he would not let his pregnant wife rest in peace. Faced with the grim choice between bloody brotherly love and the safety of his wife and children, the uncle could only scream as the tears broke his heart. The next morning, everyone gathered at Mr. Choi's house and Nam's main mother dedicatedly prepared a hot breakfast. Uncle Jang returned to his restaurant without knowing the danger lurking right in the darkness. As soon as he entered the kitchen to prepare for work, he was stunned when he saw Mr. Myung-ji already standing there waiting with a smile full of energy. Hearing the old man calmly admit that he knew his whereabouts through his younger brother Dung, Uncle Jang immediately understood that this evil man had cruelly abused his close brother and his wife. When Uncle Jang arrived, he immediately picked up the tree to live a good life with the enemy. But Mr. Myung-ji was cunning and cowardly, so he had prepared all the countermeasures in advance. He used his sharp legs to kick up Uncle Jang's body while wearing a bulletproof vest to ensure he was unharmed. The fatal blows caused Mr. Jang to collapse to the floor in pain. At that moment, he happened to see the hot commodity that he had carefully hidden for so long. Uncle Jang used all his remaining strength to use that long stick to pin Mr. Dai's eyelashes straight, making him scream in extreme pain. However, Lao still refused to give up and continued to fight like a guarded animal. He used his foot to kick and scratched a long line on Uncle Jang's face, and then ordered him to use that same tree to send him off in a painful and angry manner. Meanwhile, Lao's subordinates loudly surrounded Mr. Choi's house, led by the mighty Boomer. Ironically, at this time, only Gojin and Chairman Choi were left in the house. Gojin was sitting and eating when the dancer discovered that there was an intruder, so he immediately alerted his grandfather because the situation was too urgent. There was no time to retreat together, so he decided to stay and block their way so that his grandfather could have time to go downstairs to get some protection. He had to be alone with dozens of Lolas at the same time in a chaotic space. Because the match was so on the schedule, Gojin had to struggle to confront a guy with extremely formidable abilities. She repeatedly knocked him down to the ground, but Gojin still gritted his teeth and fiercely resisted until his last breath. Unexpectedly, in a moment of vulnerability, Gojin was repeatedly punched by the man until he passed out in a coma. As for Mr. Choi, he had also reloaded his bullets, so as soon as he saw Lola's group coming down, he immediately opened fire on them. Bum also just went down to Mr. Choi's place but saw that he had a hot product in his hand, so he timidly walked around a corner. Bum cruelly used his junior star as a shield to block bullets for himself before rushing out and using his bare hands to control the poor fake man. Old Myongja loomed forward again and personally avenged the old male scar on his face with dangerous blows. The old man began to aim at Mr. Choi's golden iron hook with greedy eyes. Two brothers Hongju and Gunwoo returned after taking their mother to the orphanage and were shocked to see the house burning in flames. Gunwoo risked his life to rush in and get his brother out in a state where Gojin was unconscious and no longer breathing. He had to suppress his pain and let him lie there, then continued running to find Hongju and his grandfather. The girl saw him lying motionless in the middle of a pile of rubble and immediately felt sad and didn't know what to do. Gwanwoo had to force Hongju out because if she stayed, she would die forever in the fire. The two brothers rushed to take Gojin to the emergency room, but unfortunately it was the epidemic season, so the hospital had a serious shortage of his group. So Gwanwoo urgently asked the doctor to take as much of his body as possible to save his brother's life at all costs. It's just that Gojin's blood pressure kept dropping, making the atmosphere in the emergency room tense and suffocating. Episode 7. The situation is extremely tense at the hospital when Mr. Choi's faction has lost too many core members. Hongju cried and felt sorry for the person he loved so much. Gwanwoo was very gentle, but before he could quickly stuff 2 cakes into his stomach, he hurriedly ran to look for Hongju, but there was no sign of her anywhere. He quickly spread out everywhere to look for his sister and repeatedly called in vain. However, she refused to pick up the phone and quietly left alone in pain. Finally, the doctor came out to announce that Gojin's surgery was a success. That good news made Han Wu burst into tears after so many tragic and horrifying events that had just happened today. Some time passed and Go Jin finally miraculously recovered, and then he and his younger brother jogged hard by the beach to exercise. After running, the two brothers rushed and lifted weights like bulls, but the EXO stood there looking at the two muscular guys without saying a word. Therefore, he still smiled slightly when he saw the two of them practicing non-stop. It turned out that he did not support these two boys returning to confront Myong Gi because his side had lost too many people. Every day, he regularly brought flowers to visit President Choi's grave and received letters from travelers sent back from faraway Italy. She said she was fine thanks to the money her grandfather left her, but her heart was always tormented because she thought it was her stubbornness that ruined everything. After reading that letter, the car driver decided to call the two brothers to discuss the important matter. He gave the two children the last emergency money that President Choi left behind to set out to carry out his ideal of revenge. The two brothers finally found their way to Seoul and lived in the apartment that the car driver had arranged. In that apartment, there was a girl who guided the two brothers very gently but also extremely harshly. She used glue to seal the locker and forbade the two boys to touch even a hair. It turns out that this girl is the car driver's beloved niece. After cleaning up, the two brothers planned to find allies according to the instructions of their ancient male predecessors. The car driver also generously left the two of them a very good sports car to travel around the world. Then the two went to Gojin's old brother, who worked as a loan officer, to persuade him to come on their side and wipe out the Capital Smiling Company. However, this brother was scared to death, so he said it was better to let go and lose his money than lose his life, causing the male lead to carefully stay home because he knew that advising this type of person would be useless. The two brothers continued to look for their senior Marine and found the place deserted like a battlefield. Turns out a few days ago, a beauty came to this guy and said he had a $10 billion bond that was about to mature. If the debt is recovered, the brother will receive 5% of the blessed commission. Because he was greedy for profit, the brother signed the contract without bothering to read the small print carefully. If he could not collect the debt within a month, he would have to compensate half of that amount. At this moment, his brother fell backwards, realizing that he had fallen into the trap of old Myong Ji's henchmen. Hearing the news that Chairman Choi, Uncle Jang, and Uncle Deng had been sent away, his brother still did not dare to believe the harsh truth. But looking at the serious faces of his two brothers was so scary that he started crying like a child. Then, as soon as the group of goats got off the bus, they were stopped by brothers Gunwoo and Gojin asking about their health. Without saying much, the two brothers pushed him into a dark corner, leaving Jun shivering like a leaf. Seeing that this bet was not favorable, he quickly promised to obediently reveal everything. The old man began to tell about the eavesdropping story, making the two brothers happily realize that Jun Minute was still alive because the old man, Mr. G, was going crazy because he didn't have the strength to take care of the police, so he had to kill and recruit new people. After he confessed everything, Mr. and Go Jin quickly took a photo of him as evidence, then threatened that if he dared to utter a word, he would send this photo to Jun Minute so he knew what a festival was right away. That night, the two brothers were smoking noodles and searching for information about the oldest brother's aunt, Ayu's niece, who couldn't help but run back and scold him for fear of having his messages read. That night, the eldest uncle went to see Myong Gi and was as gentle as a son meeting his master, but he was still severely beaten by the old man for not being able to get a lucrative contract. He was also threatened by the guy carrying the wood and made him fall from above. Old Myongji coldly gave him the last chance to fix the contract according to his wishes and bring it in before Friday if he didn't want to experience the consequences. After being spared, Mr. La and his son walked miserably to the car and lay down crying. At that moment, I received a mysterious text message asking if I wanted to remove Myongja's color or not. The boy immediately went to the police officer and showed him the message from the stranger, who said he knew where the hard drive containing the evidence was. So he listened to his cousin and went to meet the main male brothers to discuss important matters. The tycoon's fate now requires him to drink alcohol before opening his mouth to discuss. It's true that after Gojin's health incident, his liver showed he couldn't move his lips anymore. So Gunwoo had to break his own rules and down a drink to please the rich people. Having never touched a drop of alcohol, Gunwoo drank it like filtered water, making everyone stare at each other in horror. After drinking 3 glasses, he was still as calm as a flute even though the other 2 men started to gossip. The 2 boys ran out of wine and the 4 brothers sat down to talk about their love and affection. Everyone competed to say bad things about Ong Gi noodles without missing a beat. When he woke up in the morning, he was surprised to see that his 2 newly acquainted brothers had been staying in his house for some time. It turned out that the eldest brother was so drunk last night that he enthusiastically dragged the two brothers home to drink more than 2 or 3 more. Now there is a scene of brothers sitting awake and cooking instant noodles for each other for breakfast. Describing the plan, Mr. Gangjong will dispatch the police to hack into Myongja's phone to burn the hard drive inside. The action plan will be activated the day he comes to pick up the contract. This brotherly love blossomed through the hot pot of noodles, causing the 4 men to suddenly bond with each other in a strangely strong way. At one point, the 2 main male brothers secretly met with a few faces from the police. The nun started giving a false presentation about how to hack into Mr. Myongja's phone, causing a tense atmosphere. The eldest boy was not worried, afraid that the old man would discover that only water was heavy, so he came up with a bold idea to steal the phone if the opportunity came. Seeing that his brother was in trouble, his cousin had to pull him out to comfort him, telling him to trust him. Finally, he nodded in agreement for the plan to begin operating. Everyone is advised to install a signal breaking device and then check the signal carefully before the hour. Just as Mr. Myongji walked sideways into the hotel and scanned the code according to regulations, the data from his phone immediately rushed into the police officer's computer but couldn't find any folders or applications worth destroying. It turned out that this fake fox used 2 phones, so the group had to quickly switch to the better option of luring him into connecting to Wi-Fi for deeper access. He was so worried that he couldn't stand still, so the eldest boy tried to go into the room to hear the news that the most important phone was still in his pocket. This Gosen had the best idea that before signing the contract, he had to force Myongja to delete all the sensitive videos in front of him, but the eldest son had the least amount of capital, so he hesitated and did not dare to confront the evil god directly. His cousin had to spread the fire and promise that he would step on the river mouth to save the price if things went too far. Thanks to that enthusiastic encouragement, Hong Im-bong suddenly became overconfident and bravely walked back into the fateful room. He aggressively asked the lawyer to go out so he and Myongji could discuss important matters alone. While his teacher was still stubborn, he insisted that he delete the video immediately. Myongja finally pulled out the phone containing the video as if determined not to let the eldest son touch it himself. Hong Im-bong now confidently challenges him again because he knows that there is a group behind him, so he is not afraid of anyone. So the oldest boy Hong successfully tricked the old man into connecting to the Wi-Fi, helping the police officer activate the command to burn the data terminal remotely. The group also discussed extracting all the dark data from the phone to put Myong-ji in a long and harmful schedule. After finishing work, the eldest son personally took the 2 brothers home and generously asked to sponsor money for Gun-woo to have a cosmetic surgery to remove the scars on his face. However, Gun-woo flatly refused because he believed that the scar was the fate that helped him meet the wonderful people he is today. The Nam-chin brothers walk home daydreaming, wondering how much old Myong-ji's gold coin was worth, and the 2 planned to hunt him down to the ends of the earth to reclaim what he had stolen from Chairman Toy. Then, as soon as Myongji returned home, he smelled a burning smell coming from the iron and then lost his limbs when he realized that the hard drive holding the top of his head had been burned. The old man frantically took out Mr. Toy Taeho's phone and called a mysterious guy to ask him to trace the whereabouts of an old man. Episode 8. The young man from the serious crime team had just received a phone call from Mr. Toy and hastily tried to find out. Right at the moment when General Gangzong appeared, making him startled, he quickly hid the phone and tried to prevent him from engrossed in finding a house to rent for a new family. Immediately, Gangzong confided about the case he was pursuing and invited him to research the list of victims that this guy had set up without showing any signs of change. But right after that, he silently informed Mr. Myong-ji that Gangzong was holding iron evidence against him. Ong-ji Noodles immediately offered a reward of 100 million for each name in the gangsters gang that made the policeman turn cold for money. Old Myong-ji was not the average person when he guessed that Jiang-do had cleared the land and that Nam-chin's brothers had come back to criticize him. He began to plan the torture to make the enemy's enemy so frightened that it subsided. The next morning, a group of ferocious Lotharios gathered together to search for the car. This group of people couldn't ask anything from the staff, so they turned to fish lice and slashed at the innocent people around them. Their beaks continuously spit out curses that were thick and cold, making everyone who witnessed them feel displeased. Finally, one of the guys was able to trick the car driver's home address using the guise of a fake wedding invitation. Meanwhile, Jamie proudly brought Boom's file to hand it over to the male leads in a very triumphant manner. The 2 sides just stood there looking at each other, laughing and wondering why until Jamie asked for money. Then the 2 brothers understood what he meant and stuffed a piece of paper into his pocket. It turned out that it was just a cheap $10,000 bill while he thought he was getting it all as the boss had promised him in the past. The 2 brothers temporarily borrowed the computer of the car driver's niece named Da Minute to look up information despite her efforts to stop them. In the end, Dear Minute could only show himself with a face filled with despair when he saw his beloved room being destroyed by his two brothers. Seeing this, Go-jin immediately made a promise to buy everything in the world to make it up to his sister. Suddenly, Nam Chin Geovang's phone rang with the contact number showing Bum's name and a photo of the CEO whose life was being threatened. Dear Minute didn't hesitate to pick up the phone and was ordered to go to the shopping center to meet and absolutely not to report to the police. It was a surprise when she pulled out a genuine bow and arrow that she had hidden for a long time from the closet to prepare for battle. The two male leads looked back at their lack of weapons, so they discussed calling for backup but didn't know who to ask for help amid the boiling oil and fire. My two brothers' teacher didn't let me go save my grandfather, so Damien immediately showed off an extremely harsh arrow to prove that his level was not average. Gosen immediately called his senior Marine to tell him the news, and because of his deep debt of gratitude to the EXO talent, he personally removed the cast on his hand to prepare for the attack. When the two main male brothers arrived at the rendezvous point, they were stunned because they saw their senior brother disguising himself by applying black face paint and pressing unbearably close to the car's windshield. The group began to split up and spread out to save the EXO agent, just entering the commercial area. An army of ferocious Lotus soldiers arranged an elaborate siege, and Bum ordered his men to follow the sound of the pair of wise men setting off. There was also the Archer Queen, Da Minute, who provided fierce support from above, causing Da Min's newly emerging minions to continuously shoot arrows straight at Bum and the guy in the blue shirt, causing them to run away. Seeing that the other person was about to flee, the black-faced senior immediately chased after him, determined to live and die to save Mr. O. While Da Min's trimming made the blue shirt guy scared and green, he had to find a way to run away. Not giving up, the Marine gave chase, but unfortunately the blue shirt guy used an arm lock that hurt so much. Luckily, Teacher Go-jin was there in time to beat him severely for daring to touch his brother. An extremely fierce duel was about to take place when the other guy pulled out his sharp stick to play close to the game. Go-jin immediately used a tactic to encourage him, saying that if he didn't have the goods, he would just be a fool, making him feel self-conscious and put his weapon away. Finally, Bum appeared to face Han Woo head-on. But now, the fat man is no longer a happy opponent. As soon as he entered the match, he immediately took a strong hook from the male lead. The whole group began to shake the other two guys up to ask for forgiveness for accidentally punching them too far. But when he woke up, he refused to say a word. Initially, his senior brother tried to injure his leg to gain face, but he still stubbornly refused to speak. It was only when he used dangerous measures aimed directly at sensitive areas that he cried and confessed. After bad luck, the group carried Bum's body onto the pickup truck while the other guy was also thrown into the back of the truck. The two Gunwoo brothers decided to go save themselves at XO while the senior brother had to stay and guard Bum because he held the secret of the gold treasure and many important things. So the two cars split into two directions and sped away into the night. At this time, Gang Jung and his colleagues had just realized that the guardhouse's office had a close connection with Old Worm Myongji when they received a call for help from Gunwoo informing them that XO had been arrested. Because they were so confused and didn't know what to do, the two brothers called Gang Dung to tell them the entire horrifying incident that had just happened. After hearing this, Gang Dung immediately told the two of them to wait for him to come to the rescue. But unfortunately, this brother called the right young man with a hidden goat to come with him. This guy quickly secretly informed my Mr. G that the police were coming. So the old worm hurriedly called his subordinates who were holding Mr. O, ordered him to quickly clean up the fish tank scene and then quickly retreat. When the police finally arrived, the Hunwoo brothers who arrived later only heard their brother say there was nothing strange other than a normal fish farm. Hunwoo tried his best to pull out Myongji's bastard from the trunk of the car so his brother could change his mind. That guy confirmed that the information about the fish run was completely accurate, making the brothers unable to understand why the bosses group sniffed it out so quickly. The whole group had to return to the factory to meet their senior brother who was waiting for them. There, everyone saw Bum hanging like a pig that looked like he couldn't stand the pot. Surprisingly, this guy chose to log out and refused to say a word. Because he had to save his life to find Myongja's gold medal, he threw it all on the side of the bus and called an ambulance to pick it up to save him from debt. The cousin went to the coffee shop, but the staff secretly put strange drugs in the drink. As soon as he took a sip, his eldest uncle called to inform him that Mr. My still had the video and had just sent it to threaten him because he was addicted to drugs. So his cousin's eyes began to waver and he was no longer alert, but with his resilient spirit, he still managed to spot a woman being crushed in the corner. Gang Dung had to use the entire bottle to ask for some salt to try to vomit everything he had just drunk to save the last bit of sanity. Meanwhile, the eldest son Hong was suddenly attacked right in the bathroom after just finishing working out at the gym, leaving him unable to react in time. That's why the Gunwoo brothers received a phone call from old Myongji ordering them to be at the fish farm tonight. The cruel old man used Gunwoo's mother's life to threaten the two brothers to go there alone without reporting to the police. Calling Mr. Gang Dung couldn't get through, so the two brothers decided to fight a serious battle themselves tonight. That night, the three brothers approached the fish run to rescue their grandfather. The two brothers continued to bravely go into fish and finally saw Mr. O in the clutches of old Myongji. The Dizun Minute held a loudspeaker and shouted loudly, ordering the loaders to carry all kinds of heavy weapons to attack. The male lead quickly grabbed a sturdy manhole cover as a defense weapon. A bloody chaos broke out right at the dramatic fish run. The teacher was so useless that old Myonza started using Mr. O to threaten the lives of the two people. Old FT Double, you guys have to stand still and endure the battle, otherwise Mr. O will be sent away immediately. Just when everything was hanging by a thread, Damien suddenly appeared and stabbed a fatal arrow into Myonza's hand. It's true that the rich man's hand was cut, so he frantically ran away to the hospital because he was in so much pain. Because of that appointment, he forgot his uncle who helped everyone rescue them successfully. When the police arrived, the aggressive Lotus group was crushed into a cluster. The owner of the fish run and the gang that killed the corpses were also picked up and selected for their nests. Even Myongji's wife was arrested at home, and the police officer who set up the scam was officially dragged away in humiliating handcuffs. Finally, the storm passed. Everyone gathered in the hospital to recover from their injuries, but Elder Hong still couldn't sit still because old Myongzi was still an outlaw. Mr. Ganggong had to try his best to persuade the young man to take over because everyone was covered in injuries. So Gun would proactively propose to continue to commit to telling the grass at every corner. The first goal is to find Jiang Du because even though he is hiding, he certainly knows where the old boss will go. Unfortunately, Jiang Du falsely accused him of not using his phone for half a year and only leaving his account number. GMI Ong immediately devised a plan to transfer a large amount of money there to lure him into revealing himself to withdraw money, thus falling into a trap. Meanwhile, old Mi Ong Gi was frantically drinking alcohol to relieve the pain of losing, causing Jun Minute and Bum to cry when they saw it. And one fine day, when the two brothers were enthusiastically practicing, they received a call from Jiang Du's strange number. So Gunyu immediately took the opportunity to ask about the old man's hiding place. He lost 1 billion golf within 4 days, or else he would keep silent, making the two brothers look miserable because they only had 300 million left in their pockets. Having decided to ask his eldest brother, Minute Bomb, Han Wu also had to go to the young master to ask for help. Minute Bomb was afraid that the guy would take the money and steal the information, so Han Wu said that if he ran, he would chase him to the ends of the earth. Moved by that kindness, Minute Bomb nodded and prepared to give Han Wu 1 billion. Meanwhile, Jun Minute also silently packed valuable items into containers to prepare to evacuate. One night, a mysterious man appeared at the meeting point and signaled with a flashlight. In response, The car's headlights flickered continuously, proving that Jiang Du did not mince words. He secretly informed that at 1:0 a.m. on the first day, there would be a ship to take my Ong-Gi and the entire slush fund to Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam to escape crime. Jiang Du was hiding in the port, so he immediately reported the number of containers where the boss was hiding gold and told the two of them to move and fight on their own. He also carefully mentioned the name of the tour guide on the ship, who was extremely cash-hungry. The next morning, the two brothers galloped away in their naked car while the oldest boy, Minbom, continuously called to closely monitor the situation. At that time, the two brothers handed over a black plastic bag full of money to the guide so they could sneak onto the ship that was destined to contain Myongja's treasure. Once there, the two began to split up and rummage around every corner of the boat to find the enemy. Finally, Hanyu met Myongji and the two began to play a breathtaking game of hide and seek in the forest of containers. Old Myongji was inherently cowardly, so he repeatedly used a sharp and thick wooden stick, causing Hanyu to get a painful worm on his back. He also played dirty and stuck a sharp point in his mouth, then made Hanyu rush forward and leave a long line on his face. The two of them punched each other on top of the containers, and at one point, Hanyu was defeated and kicked repeatedly until he was dizzy. But with an iron will, the guy jumped up like a spring and launched jaw-dropping blows that sent the old man flying a meter away. But at that opportunity, the guy was about to stop him when suddenly Fat Bum came out and beat him to death. Gozan was thrown around in pain by Bum like a toy, so bitter that Gozan threw the shirt in the fat guy's face and punched him repeatedly, forcing Bum to find a way to escape. The two sides were playing a game of tossing each other over the iron bars, considering that in 1 minute, the boom guy missed his punch, causing his hand to collide painfully with the iron pillar. Gozan did not miss the opportunity to continuously attack him, causing him to become crooked and collapse miserably under powerful punches. Desolate, Gozan found his younger brother sitting in a daze, thinking about life because he was afraid he had become a real sand dog. His brother quickly comforted him that just knowing the way back would make his heart feel much more at ease. So the two brothers worked together to capture a truck filled with gold from Mr. Mice slush fund. Later, the eldest son called in time, so the two brothers quickly cleaned up the spoils while the old insect was still unconscious. In the end, the eldest son was able to get back the phone containing his secret so he could sleep with his pillow elevated. The cousin also asked Interbund International to intervene to untangle my mister. Minute Bomb immediately proposed to use this 84 billion as a medical fund or to build a modern hospital for people. The two brothers were so honest that Minute Bomb gave each of them 2 gold bars as capital, and I added more money to the fund. Day after day, Gunwoo's mother worked hard and took good care of the children at the summer camp. Dad was extremely happy to see his son again, and Go Jin returned with shy joy. An old gangster with shiny hair just landed at the airport with a group of new disciples. From his attitude, we can guess that this guy is the villain fighting against the male protagonist. Meanwhile, the two brothers Gunwoo and Go Jin are now enjoying life together under the same roof, no different from siblings. Today is Gunwoo's important competition day, so these two kebab guys gradually practice from early morning. After practicing vigorously, the two brothers wandered over to help their mother at the coffee shop. Gunwoo took on the job of super speed delivery, but because he hated having to wait for the elevator to climb up the hill, he went straight to the 19th floor without any harm. As soon as the lucky customer opened the door, he immediately recognized GNU as the famous boxing star in the ring. Nam Chin received a few words of encouragement from the guest, politely thanked him, and then ran away as fast as the wind. Then the whole family gathered around the cozy dinner tray to clearly see that Gojins has now officially become an indispensable member of GNU and her mother's small family. Gunwoo's desire to usurp the world's #1 position was soaring. He dragged Mr. Ang Gojin out to practice and pounded his acupuncture points like an industrial stamping machine. finally arriving at the fateful press conference where the male lead met his eternal rival. As soon as he saw Gunwoo's face, he let go of his arrogant behavior, even though his brother just wanted to shake hands peacefully in an understanding and cooperative manner. However, the opponent lost focus and grabbed Hanyu with a burning cheek, causing chaos throughout the entire class like a bustling market. The World Super General Championship match between Hanyu and Adit finally kicked off with the close escort of Nani Go-jin as the gold medalist. Suddenly, a strange young man dressed in black appeared in the stands, observing with a conspiratorial look in his eyes. The foreign boxer entered the match with an unspeakable attitude when he refused to touch gloves and even pushed his hand in a challenge that made Gunwoo bleed. As soon as he opened the match, Adidas continuously tried to unleash the stormy combo of punches that was his forte. Suddenly, Gunwoo launched a fierce counterattack by raising his stance and then rushing in to kill with a left hand, causing the audience to gradually howl. But in just a few minutes, Gunwoo was hit by Adidas and made him so dizzy that he had to brace himself to regain his breath. Witnessing that scene, the strange blackface man began to worry, because if Hanwoo won, the prize money would be enough for him to pay off all his debt to the chairman. As soon as he returned to Korea, he had the intention of sending Hanwoo to prison, so he ordered his juniors to keep an eye on Nam Chin's mother, who was sitting nearby cheering. The fight continued to be as tense as a string when the foreign boxer pushed Nam Chin into the corner and then pounded him into the bone right from the first round. Hanwoo is still extremely clever in using delay cards to let his opponent lose his strength. When Adit continued to press the field, he threw a straight left-hand punch and then followed up with a bunch of rubbers, causing Hanwoo to use a strong hug technique to escape the round. At the end of the first half, the male lead was breathing heavily because his opponent was too close. At this time, Go-jin immediately spoke up and told his brother Tran and not to be shy but to believe in the close combat style that the two brothers had practiced so hard for so long. His brother's steady gaze helped Gunwoo regain his confidence to boldly step forward into the competition. Opening the second round, Gunwoo launched a series of punches from the left to reclaim justice and show off his true dog class. He shook his body up and down like a rock to close the distance and then rushed in, forcing the foreign fighter into a dead corner. Hearing his brother shouting the command, Gunwoo repeatedly punched his opponent's body and then finished it off with a powerful blow straight to the head. However, right at the decisive moment, Gunwoo reluctantly stopped when he saw that his opponent's left eye was distorted by the weight. The beautiful martial spirit made the entire audience stand up and applaud loudly out of admiration. During the break, Go-jin urged his brother to end the match with a thunderous right hand, but Gunwoo refused because he was afraid that if he hit him with a right hand, he would have to get another dozen stitches. Go-jin understood his brother's sense of justice, so he clicked his tongue and agreed to let him fight according to the spiritual system. Unexpectedly, old Adit glanced at the strange black-shirted chicken and received the signal to finish off Gunwoo with a rack. As soon as the bell rang for round 3, Gunwoo quickly ran left and right and threw a left punch, causing Adit to collapse on the spot without time to deny. Counting 10 seconds, he still lay still like a dried fish, so the referee declared Gunwoo the new champion. The entire auditorium chanted Gunwoo's name, echoing throughout the sky. While everyone was celebrating, the kind young man ran to ask about his opponent, causing him to admire him and praise him wholeheartedly. Our two brothers had another night of overwhelming happiness with a glorious victory on the prestigious stage. Then the two brothers grilled meat to celebrate lavishly and then remembered the tense time fighting with the old man. The two agreed to bring the championship belt to visit President Choi Tae-ho to fulfill their wish. Go-jin emotionally thanked Gunwoo for pulling him in the right direction that day and refused the invitation to become a bulldog for gangsters. If it weren't for this honest brother, my life would have turned dark a long time ago. Gunwoo humbly expressed his gratitude for always helping both of their lives turn to a brighter new page. Suddenly, the eldest son Imbong, who had just returned from a business trip to Taiwan, visited Gunwoo and his mother's house with a bunch of fruit in his hand. As soon as they saw the young man coming out, the two brothers shook hands in joy and together drank quality wine from bottle to bottle without getting tired. Im-bom excitedly showed the two brothers the project to build a hospital named after President Choi Tae-ho, making the Marine duo extremely emotional. At this time, the girl who broke the lock, Tae-jong, was undergoing rehabilitation treatment, so the two brothers often brought her meals to visit and help her go to the supermarket. Tae-jong felt embarrassed because the two of them came every week, but Go-jin firmly affirmed that since they were family, they would absolutely never neglect each other. Hearing the noble ideals of the two kebab guys, she was moved to tears on the spot. Seeing that Go-din was hugging and eating rice noodles so enthusiastically, Go-yu immediately glanced at them because he thought they were secretly dating each other. The foreign boxer was forced to fight in debt because he spent all his money on gambling. I was trying to buy time, but I heard that the profit had jumped to millions of dollars, so I had to grit my teeth and listen. He refused to wear iron gloves for fear of causing trouble, but the cruel coordinator dragged his daughter out and threatened to force him to participate. Meanwhile, the bleached-haired guy sat in the computer room lazily observing every move on the screen. They set up an illegal connection with a huge amount of money pouring in quickly, reaching nearly 400 million. These guys really only care about money and commissions and have nothing to do with the fighter's life. The foreign boxer's opponent was a shiny-haired guy who looked extremely talented and graduated, making him surprisingly subjective and wanted to punch him right away. Surprisingly, the guy with shiny hair turned out to be the one who really deserved it when he took at it to the corner of the stage and aimed straight at the bookmarks on his eyes, continuously beating him, looking unbearably miserable. He also cruelly pushed the foreign boxer's face close to the camera to make people laugh and then knock the opponent flat on the floor. Not stopping there, the glossy-haired president also wanted to turn off the coffee so he could use his hands to beat at it until the flowers and leaves scattered the minnows everywhere. After the match, his commission increased 12 times, causing him to eagerly demand that his juniors drag champion Gunwoo here for him to handle. As for the foreign boxer, while being examined by a doctor to see if there were any parts left for sale, the coordinator suddenly sent him away to destroy the evidence. He did not forget to remind his juniors about the chairman's order to capture Gunwoo and return to Han. For that reason, these people went to the male lead's house and pretended to be his training partner to trick the mother into opening the door to bring the tiger into the house. As soon as the two brothers arrived, they saw the newly born President Tok Bong and his junior sitting lazily in the living room like the hosts of the house. At this time, the true face of the underground boxing tournament operator was revealed when he wanted to recruit Gunwoo to serve their association of 4 million members, but he flatly refused. They started using the bait of 10 billion to manipulate the psychology that this amount of money would help Gunwoo's mother live happily for the rest of her life. Seeing that the male lead was still hesitant about choosing the shiny-haired president who also paid an additional 5 billion in bonus if he won, making the atmosphere even more tense, Gunwoo's mother worriedly ran down to stop her son, not knowing that the coordinator had hot goods in his hand, ready to strike at any moment. He was so angry that he was about to attack but was stopped by his juniors, so he only had time to hold the stick and declare that Gunwoo would definitely have to fight him before leaving. Because he was not successful in recruiting with words, this short-haired president ordered his juniors to capture Gunwoo's mother as a hostage. They searched for 4 criminals serving life sentences who had a blood feud with Gunwoo and Go Jin. The plan was to take them all out to be bulldogs for 100 million each, but the hairless president ended up choosing the most stubborn boomer. The long-haired junior continuously offered dangerous plans to win the big brother's favor and was trusted with the task of putting pressure on Gunwoo's mother. When those two guys came out, it was revealed that the long-haired guy was the manager of the president's juniors. The short-haired guy was the corrupt Sergeant Jun who was secretly working for the gangsters. Because he was chosen, Bum in prison received a book with a message and a mysterious pill to dig a train. The two male leads smelled a bad smell, so they immediately called Jamie on to track down the other people's whereabouts. But when they closed the file, there were no names that matched the mysterious 4 million member underground tournament group. It was so unfortunate that Go Jin suggested asking Minute Bomb and Gang Dong for help, even though Gwanwoo was still worried that everyone would get into trouble because of him. One afternoon, the male lead's mother was engrossed in cleaning the coffee shop when she saw a group of dark people stopping in front of the door, so she quickly pulled out her phone and took defensive stance. The next day, they didn't come into the shop, so she breathed a sigh of relief, not knowing that she had been blindly recognized by them. The two brothers quietly installed up to 8 cameras around the house to keep watch. Gojin ran out to secretly report that the foreign boxers team had returned home, but the boxer himself had mysteriously disappeared, making the two brothers firmly believe that it was related to the underground fight. At that time, a group of bodyguards led by young Din Nam received orders to break into Gunwoo's house, even though he still felt guilty in his heart, but because of the money, he closed his eyes. The bleached-headed guy quickly made a joke, causing the whole army of soldiers to fall into the male lead's house, then carefully covered Gunwoo's mother's mouth and carried it away. Because of his carelessness, she fell and caused a loud noise, so Gunwoo woke up and rushed to save his mother while Gojin had to stay behind to confront a big guy like a guardian. The battle broke out extremely fiercely when Gojin, even though he had retired, still had to win against a heavy opponent, causing him to be knocked to the ground. The guy even broke the button display case, causing Gojin to go crazy and borrow the winning trophy to beat his opponent and let him fall freely from above. You jumped from the 20th floor to save her mother, but a fat guy blocked her path and threw her to the ground in pain. He didn't give up and soloed extremely well with 3 guys at the same time, even though the guy behind him repeatedly punched him in the stomach with an electric hook. Being played by the gang to the point of fainting, you still stubbornly held on, forcing the electrician to worry about rescuing his fallen teammate. The group of children ran away, but you still ran at full speed and chased after him without leaving even a single step. The young man sitting in the car looked at the male lead with complicated eyes. Then suddenly Sergeant Jun cruelly exploded the car to kill Lola's group who were not working properly. Episode 2 Bum sat in prison, stressed to the extreme, and then decided to swallow the mysterious pill at the appointed time. Immediately, he foamed at the mouth so much that the prison guards had to frantically call an ambulance to take him away. In fact, that car was set up by a group of horse-faced bullies to take advantage of the prison guards and then rob the prison to take Boom away. After the manager injected him with medicine to wake him up, Boom again refused to cooperate with the kiss, causing the manager to get angry and warn him that if he left here, his life would be over. Boom, the cat, knew nothing about fear and dared to target the luxury car parked in the corner, causing a chaos to break out between him and Lola's group that had just saved him. Clouds of guys as big as bullock cartwheels crashed into each other, crashed into rocks and dust, and the Boom guy still showed off his typical dirty tricks that scared the opponent. Unexpectedly, the short-haired president appeared from that same car and rushed in to punch the guy like an industrial stamping machine. Even though he was beaten hard, the Boom guy was still incredibly stubborn and thought he would turn the deal against the big brother. But in the end, he had to kneel at the feet of the president and listen to the logic. When hearing the proposal to go find Gun Woo to settle the matter, Bum still proudly showed his fatherly expression, causing the hair-tied president to give him another punch to wake him up on the spot. Detective Choi and his teammates were present at the scene of the car explosion and determined that the culprit used a phone detonation device with advanced technician qualifications. The detective let the detective find the bodyguard of the young man in the palace, but when he arrived at Gunwoo's house, his face was extremely suspicious. The male protagonists recounted the underground arena incident, but the detective was not surprised at all but was even more moved. Hearing that the newly installed camera had been disabled made the two brothers shocked, while the detective still pretended to shake hands and congratulate him on the championship. Realizing that the house was no longer safe, Go-jin asked the whole family to evacuate immediately to MST Dong's place to hide. The family got into the car and tried to encourage each other to overcome the disaster without knowing that the corrupt Jun and the bleached-haired doctor were secretly following. We were extremely welcoming at Tae-rong's house and always appreciated Wonwoo's mother's help and delicious food. The two brothers asked this high-ranking policewoman to use her skills to interrogate information about the underground ring, which was hidden very well. Tae-rong had to use the dark web to track down the group's underground arena introduction page with cruel scenes that made the male lead lose his life just looking at it. This website requires you to use a credit card to access it, so you are worried that your tracks will be discovered immediately. Gunwoo quickly suggested using a fake ID of the deceased to bypass the system, and she nodded in agreement. Go-jin decided to let Gunwoo stay to protect his mother and T-Zone, while he left to take care of important matters. But as soon as Go-jin stepped out, he was discovered by the bleached-haired Guy and Jun, who followed closely. Go-jin sneaked through the alleys to find his senior brother Gangzone. The two brothers happily shook hands and hugged each other passionately after many days of separation. Go-sun didn't beat around the bush and told his brother about the underground arena that was crushing Gaon-yu. Mr. Gang-jong immediately realized that these guys must have a huge force behind them to dare to spend 15 billion just to tease a martial artist. Just by looking at it, I knew that that den was sure to make a lot of money. So that's why I was willing to play like that. Mr. Gang immediately ordered the long-haired employee Sun Bu to bring out 3 ghost cards to support his juniors, but Go-sun refused because he wanted to work with Gaon-yu on his own. Of course, his cousin could never sit idly by and watch his brother in danger and insisted on helping him along the way. He also carefully told Go-jin to run around to check if there was a tail following him, and as expected, the corrupt guy was lurking behind with the car whose license plate had been recorded. The gang immediately called Go-jin to tell Go-jin to take his mother and the tiger and leave that place immediately because their location had been revealed. Go-jin hurriedly informed Gunwoo and then told his younger brother to seek Minbong's help because the situation was hanging by a thread, and the guy and his brother were turning around on a tangerine cart to capture the stalker alive. Gunwoo nervously went out to call Minbong but only received a cold subscriber voice. When Tae-rong heard the story, she did not complain and quickly packed her things to escape. Fortunately, Minbom's secretary called back for support because the young master was busy working abroad. Gunwoo was instructed to take his mother to the owner of Y Corporation to ensure absolute safety. At the same time, he was equipped with a cool red motorbike to continue saving his brother. Once the mother and the rhinoceros were safely in a safe place, Gunwoo immediately took off and flew towards the destination. The bleached-haired guy soon discovered Gunwoo's whereabouts, so Jun quickly called the chairman to request an arrest warrant for Go-jin on behalf of his mother. The chairman, with his hair tied up, shook his head and ordered the manager to send more people to a quiet nearby factory to carry out the task. Jun led the convoy and rushed straight into the brick factory to prepare for a fierce raid. The solo fight broke out when Jun single-handedly beat both brothers because he was just an office worker and he wasn't strict. Even though he has retired, Go-jin still unleashes powerful steel punches that make his opponent die. However, Jun was originally a police officer, so his fighting ability was also extremely formidable when he beat him so hard that his forehead was torn. Go-jin saw that his brother was in danger and rushed to the rescue, but Jun pulled out a cowardly act and threatened him with hot goods. He rushed in like a moth, but was locked tightly by the gang, allowing Go-jin to hit his leg hard. Jun frantically used a wooden stick to hit Go-jin in the stomach, causing him to use his bare hands to block it, even though it poured out like rain. We had to wait until Mr. Gang regained consciousness and coordinated well before the two could defeat the degenerate Jun, but Gang's joy was in vain when the manager's army came in large numbers to unite. The two brothers were exhausted at this point, so they had to find a way to escape. Mr. Gang prioritized pushing Gozen to jump first, so he was caught by the mob. Mr. and on the ground had to live and die with his soldiers to make way for Gozen to escape. Mr. and Tree repeatedly used bricks and bricks on the enemy to stop them, but because the enemy was too numerous, Mr. Gang was cornered and beaten to the point of fainting on the spot. Try to force Gozen to hold his spear tightly while trying to run away from the fierce army. Luckily, I still have steel legs to kick them down like straw. As soon as the guy forcefully encouraged him to be good, he rushed in and the small shrimps actually pulled them all over. They drove Gozen into a dead end with no way out. There was a stupid guy who rushed forward and fell straight down, causing the rest of the group to stop being stupid and focus on Gozen. To warn him of harm, he had to hide his sore arm in his jacket to fight alone with the bandits with hot goods in their hands. Because the enemy army was too large, Go-jin was brutally beaten by the council. He began to get dirty and faint in the middle of the chaotic crowd. Just as the male lead Gunwoo was cleaning the car, he saw his brother Kaikot lying on the ground surrounded by shrimp and shrimp. His anger reached its peak. Without saying a word, he taught this group a lifelong lesson for daring to touch his brothers. Each guy just fell down before Gunwoo's superior skills. As a champion, all it took was one hook of his jaw and the group of Lolas fell down immediately. Wherever the punching machine driver goes, the guys lie there without having time to deny it. The last guy was still challenging loudly, but Gunwoo gave him a hard time before he finally shut up. Hearing Ji Yu-jin whispering his name, the male lead finally stopped. Looking at his brother's cold, red arm, he felt extremely sad. The next day, Mr. Gang was still breathing well, so the three brothers agreed to leave this unhappy meeting. Gunwoo took his two brothers to the hospital and then burst into tears with his mother out of regret. He blamed himself that if he had accepted to join the underground arena from the beginning, his brothers wouldn't have had to endure such distortions. With his mother's return, the male lead gradually regained consciousness and no longer thought about pants. Mr. Gang, who had just finished stitching his wound, lay down majestically while Go-jin, who was bandaging his hand, tried to flirt, scaring the nurse's face. Seeing his junior crying because of that, Gang immediately brushed it off and told him to be strong both inside and out to protect his loved ones. Gunwoo then led his brother Gangmoo to meet his seniors to discuss plans. As soon as he heard that Gangmoo was running the company for the role of heavy hitter, his police cousin sternly reminded him that he would take action if he did something wrong. At this time, Inbom also quickly arranged for Gunwoo's mother to stay at a 5-star hotel with security guards to pay back his gratitude to his younger brother for helping him in the past. In the midst of the boiling fire, the group received news from their police cousin that Bum had successfully escaped from prison. Everyone believed that Bum had escaped to take revenge, so the atmosphere became even more tense. Minute Bomb was worried about going out because he was afraid that if Bum got out, old Myung-ji would sooner or later reappear as a tiger. Mr. Kang wanted to rush in and pull out a hand, but his police cousin flatly refused him because of his lack of trust, making him very sad. Seeing that the situation was so deadlocked, In-bom offered to take Hunwoo's mother home to rest first so everyone could think about it further. Hunwoo's mother was presented with a powerful bodyguard and received the most secure room because her eldest son personally bombed her. Mr. and Go-zin, after recovering his bones, quickly went to find the male lead. Seeing that his brother was still healthy, Hunwoo felt angry and blamed himself for not coming a little sooner. Even though he had reached this point, Mr. and still chewed and smiled, wanting to eat rice to get strong and healthy like a marine. As soon as Senior Gangmoon arrived, his assistant told him the bad news. It turned out that he had sniffed out a group that specialized in using jeeps, just like the group that attacked him, and even had the address of their lair, making Gang Moon happy. This brother immediately pulled out a phone from his pile of devices. When he accidentally saw Du Duong's contact, he suddenly became speechless because old memories came back. That night, as soon as the president showed his face, Jung was furious for doing business like a cat puking and not being able to catch a single paw. He even despicably dragged his daughter out and threatened to force her to work properly. The next morning, when everyone used their ghost card to access the Warp's underground arena page, they saw Golf Yu's photo loomed there along with a sensational advertisement that he would participate in a competition to stimulate betting. Looking back at old matches, the Nam Chin brothers immediately recognized that Chairman Baek Zong had directly fought the foreign boxer before he mysteriously disappeared. Unexpectedly, the bleached-headed guy successfully sang into the computer of the rhinoceros, and then through the camera observed all the movements of the girl and the male lead brothers. Realizing that he could no longer use the computer, the rhinoceros quickly turned off the computer and cut off contact immediately. Later, Gang Mu Sr. came to visit and heard the story of the foreign boxer's disappearance after being involved in an underground fight, making everyone worried because they were determined to drag him into their lair. The brothers got together and went to follow the big guys who had attacked them, but they followed a big guy from the Cunning 99 Association. As soon as I opened the gym door to pretend to sign up for a workout, I saw a whole bunch of fat people sitting and exposing their bodies inside. They immediately recognized the pair of brothers they had beaten, so they rushed out to fight, causing a full-blown chaos to take place right in that area. The neighbors saw Hai Hung Lian's scene and immediately called the police, causing Mr. Jiang Mu to ask him to talk about it. But these grumpy guys didn't know how to behave. The whole group started to brawl in the hallway regardless of their faces, making the male lead's brothers, who had just been injured, clearly exhausted. Unexpectedly, the long-haired assistant was as enthusiastic as anyone else while struggling with the new stitches. His hand was distorted and painful. Finally, the police arrived, but the fat guys still didn't know what to fear until they were electrocuted and had their stomachs chased continuously before they could lie still. Meanwhile, Gun Wu and his police cousin went to meet Detective Choi as scheduled when suddenly a stranger rushed towards Choi's stomach, making the two brothers unable to keep up. Seeing the culprit, Gun Wu immediately launched his legs and chased after him without letting go. Wherever this guy runs, he causes chaos, trying to find a way to escape with his practiced crab-catching technique even though he doesn't seem to know how to punch or kick. The other teacher jumped over to the building next to him and stopped to provoke him, so the male lead also risked his life to jump too, but unfortunately he lost his footing and fell to the ground. By the time he managed to hang himself inside, the bleached-haired man had already run away and disappeared. He received a text message informing him that he could not save Detective Choi in time, causing Han Wu to break down in pain because he lost an important ally. At this time, Go Jin wanted to ask Mr. Gang Jung to intervene, so the two brothers went to the police station where Go Jin and Mr. Gang Mu were being detained along with the fat guys. Thanks to the police officer's reputation, the group was released, causing the group to start shouting indignantly but were extremely upset. It was only when Gang Jung warned about the dark future of these overweight guys if they kept their wild attitude that they obediently shut up. When he went outside, the police captain scolded Gangmu for not listening and causing all the lies to spread. Gangmu was hurt because he couldn't stand side by side with everyone, so he tried to convince Gang Jung to give him a chance to redeem himself. Because of the close bond between brothers, the team leader finally agreed to let Gangmu arrest the fat guy named Ram at night to get information. That evening, Senior Gangmu secretly followed the guy to a massage parlor that was already an acquaintance of MS Moa, so the two brothers tied his hands together very smoothly. The assistant quickly rushed forward and pressed the fat man's head down on the table to show his authority, while Gangmu began using dangerous moves targeting his buttocks to interrogate him. Being tortured in pain, the guy had to confess that his big brother, Du Song, was the one who was the mastermind of Miu Sai and Lola's group to beat the male leads. We had to wait for Gangmu's brother to turn around a few more times until the fat guy was about to be chased by a thug before he was willing to honestly confess everything. Luckily, this fat guy also had the victim's watch handy, so Gangmu took a photo of it as evidence and immediately sent it to the captain. Because he didn't know how to proceed, he asked his junior Gonzong to take a photo to investigate the truth of the incident. That's me, Inbom's assistant. As soon as he came home, he was shocked to discover that his sister was in extremely dangerous danger. It turned out that the sinister manager had devised this trick to make F. Gonzong obediently obey. Seeing his sister injured and in pain, the assistant closed his eyes and revealed the hotel location and room number where Han Wu's mother was hiding. He also confirmed that the gangster was Inbom's cousin and then completely revealed his big brother's schedule for tomorrow night. where he was going and what he was doing. After getting the information, the manager immediately went out to receive a mysterious medicine from the strange old man with the assertion that just one drop would send the other person to a haunted house immediately. At the same time, a girl with the nickname Crazy Lone appeared at Inbom's pub to carry out a dark plot. She did not hesitate to kiss the employee, paralyzing his whole body, and then administered a hypnotic drug to control his mind. Thanks to that dastardly trick, the crazy girl was able to find out all the information about Inbom going to the bar to drink to plan an assassination. Because he accidentally revealed the family matter, the assistant had a terrible conscience and had to refuse the big brother's invitation to come up for a drink. Seeing Inbom leave, his heart was on fire, but he didn't dare say a word. But right after that, the hallucination struck and everything around him began to melt. The despicable black woman returned to the scene where the eldest son was bewildered and crying like someone who had been high on drugs. The situation was so bad that Inbom had to be hospitalized in the emergency room, and the doctor informed him that he needed a fake transplant to save his life. Meanwhile, the blind gang received a text message from Dude Wong asking about the children. So he gritted his teeth and sent back a message that he was fine and his heart was on fire. He and the police captain rushed into the pub and heard the sound of smashing meat coming from inside. It turned out that the bartender was trying to signal for help with his feet while being restrained. After reviewing the camera and hearing the miserable story, Gangmu immediately realized that the bartender had been drugged. The truth was for F to confess. That girl even carefully cut off the camera transmission to erase the traces. Through testimony, only Inbom and the secretary told us about their coming schedule. But Mr. Gangmu still firmly believed that it was not the secretary's betrayal. The captain believed that Gangmu should be assigned the task of tracking down Denzina, which made him happy because he was finally chosen. Guanwu saw that Gojin needed to rest, so he agreed to go with senior Gangmu and affirmed that he would protect him to the end. Just as he was about to leave, Gojin received a call from an unknown number from Bak Zhongquan, threatening and asking about Inbong with a sarcastic tone. He begins to psychologically manipulate Guanwu into having to fight to the death. Otherwise, Gojin's wrist will be broken in 3 days and the male lead's mother will be sold to Southeast Asia to do bad things. The threatening phone call made Gunwu confused, but Gangmu taught him to transform into something even scarier than a beast to fight against these pests. So the two brothers went to a wine cellar for effeminate men to track down the crazy woman. A young man there was eager to help immediately, but because the photo was small and blurry, he couldn't see anyone. Later, this boy realized that the hypnotic drug was a game of truth. So when Gangmu promised to lower the interest rate, he immediately called the importer. It turned out that the drug seller named Zhang Jun was a huge fan of Gunwu, so he revealed the identity of the crazy woman as Gina. Gangmu immediately told the captain the good news and was crazy happy to be praised and recognized for his abilities. The group then met at the hotel to sit down and discuss a smooth battle plan. Meanwhile, Mr. Gangdong and Gojin went to the assistant house. Seeing his confused attitude, he vaguely guessed what was going on, so he told them to go inside and explain it in black and white. Gangdong knew very well that this assistant had been accepted to study at Y Group and that Inbom had wholeheartedly chosen him to be his right-hand man. But now he had the heart to stab his great benefactor in the back, hearing everyone criticize his brother as a traitor, causing his younger sister UOC to run out and show him the wound on her body. Looking at that tragic situation, Gangjong also understood that these two brothers were threatened by the villains, so he asked his assistant to tell the beginning and end of the story. The younger sister began narrating how she was kicked and crushed, then the assistant detailed the crazy actions they did to her. He also confessed that he saw them working together extremely well and brutally, and even that he revealed Han Yue's mother's hiding place because he was too scared. Because he didn't want his assistant to reveal what he had secretly told his friends, Gangzong chose to quietly increase security to protect everyone. He also no longer checked the matter about his assistant's betrayal because when it comes to the lives of loved ones, everyone will have to make the same choice. After listening, the assistant burst into tears and felt extremely regretful, then asked about President Inbom's situation in vain. At this moment, Gangzong received a phone call from Junior Goldzong, so he told him to come here immediately to discuss the next plan. Currently, President Inbom has regained consciousness, but he absolutely refused to be injected with painkillers to overcome his coma at all costs. The captain introduced Gonzong to the group so they could cooperate in combat. Immediately, Mr. Gonzong realized that Jun was the person who had beaten everyone to death and was also an extremely dangerous bomb maker. Everyone began to visualize the hierarchical organization chart of the group of villains surrounding them. By the way, Gunwoo recounted how he was so upset that he called him directly to threaten him. He also provided shocking news that Detective Choi was sold out for only $50. The current situation makes people can no longer trust anyone outside, so they have to divide their work among themselves to take action. Ms. Dong is responsible for monitoring the dark web and searching for the whereabouts of the bleach-haired guy to report any changes as soon as possible. After a while, he spent time checking traffic cameras to find the person who stabbed Detective Choi, and finally he found out. Reveal his true face. Meanwhile, Go-jin and the captain went to Jun's mother's house with a bunch of things, cable flowers in hand, to visit. The two of them clearly assigned each other tasks when the captain took care of her conversation. The old man and Go-jin took on the task of playing with the child to create a natural atmosphere. See the mother. It seemed difficult to open up because he was afraid of the child's presence, so the captain winked and signaled. Immediate distraction from teammates. It turned out that Jun had to go to sleep because of his meager military salary, not enough to pay hospital bills for my daughter, who is suffering from pancreatic cancer. Finally, my aunt also, touched by the sincerity, he agreed to contact the captain if his son found his way home by talking to the child. So the governor learned that Jun had secretly visited his son 3 days ago, plus the information that because he was burdened with hospital bills, he couldn't pay them, so he had to sell himself as a lackey to them. The captain wanted to ask his juniors to find Jun's location to try to meet once. Maybe he could lure this misguided guy back to flirt with him. Suddenly Inbong called to inform him that he was fine, making his cousin very happy because as soon as he hung up the phone, a photo of the person who stabbed the detective was sent to prepare for a new raid. Gangbu and Gunwoo killed to find Gina's whereabouts at all costs. The male protagonist must return home and pull out the essential set of gloves that he has kept hidden for a long time to prepare for the upcoming battle. One night, the brothers climbed into the car to play detective and finally sniffed out the movements of this crazy woman. Young Jun wholeheartedly told him and did not forget to tell his idol to be very careful. So the whole group gathered and headed straight to the casino on the 7th floor where Gina was working. The captain, because of each of the 5 regions here, is most familiar with the terrain, and to ensure everyone's safety, Gunwoo takes the position in the most dangerous direction. The 4 brothers divided into 3 sides and began searching for the enemy's nest. Gunwoo wore combat gloves and his senior broke in with his senior's sweet trick of luring the door guard. Then Namchin hit him a few more times, causing him to fall unconscious on the spot. As soon as the 2 brothers arrived, they encountered Sina, but this woman quickly pressed the alarm button, causing the surrounding henchmen to rush out and surround Namchin. He continuously used his hands to block the attack and then repeatedly swung his fists, causing a fight to break out right in the middle of the casino. Gunwoo was now much calmer as he slowly took down each shrimp, even though they had hot goods in their hands, but still fell unconscious. Mr. and tried his best to explain that he was not a police officer, but the others insisted on believing him. One guy desperately used a chair to pin down the male lead, but he was so strong that he struggled and then punched him through the chair, beating him to a pulp. Faced with 2 hot items, Gunyu chose to punch him in the face and send him off to visit his grandparents, then successfully saved his senior and moved together. Gina thought she had quickly escaped downstairs, but instead chased and ran into Go-jin, who was waiting. He even intended to use the goods and then scream and make a fuss, but in the end it ended up in Go-jin's hands. Everyone confiscated Gina's phone, and thanks to T-Zone's top-notch expertise, they were able to access it. From there, it was discovered that she had close contact with Jun. T-Dong immediately called Moi Hotel to get information that Jun was staying long-term in a luxury apartment to inform everyone. However, the employee there secretly informed the villains, but they were busy calling foreign investors, so they didn't pay attention. That investor only cares about profit, so he announced that he would only invest capital if this group could attract Gunwoo to become a money printer. After finishing his story, the president heard the receptionist inform him that the police were coming, so he quickly hid. The special forces were present at the hotel, but the captain insisted that Gunwoo not go up with him to ensure safety. Everyone cautiously moved upstairs and rushed into the apartment, but inside it was dark and silent without a single person, making the captain extremely disappointed. Suddenly, he discovered an explosive device hidden delicately in a tree, and that was Jun's trap when he detonated the entire apartment. Right after that, the president called the male lead and loudly cursed him as the one who sent his teammates off to a haunted house. He told Gunwoo to come and participate in that brutal match if he didn't want to pile up even more debt. That night, Inbom's uncle came to visit, and he asked his uncle to send off the person who harmed everyone out of this situation. So the uncle agreed to consider it because Inbom wanted it. After the explosion, Gun Woo was with him. The captain got into the ambulance. He was seriously injured by the bomb and had to take a break from class for a test. Gun Song called Gun Woo and Go Jin to ask about the situation. Gun Woo reported that the captain was in a coma, causing everyone extremely worried people. So Han Woo stayed at the hospital and ran around to where Go Jin was arresting the crazy woman. Because the captain was in critical condition, Gang Moo lost his composure, and the other woman became coy. Men can't pass the beauty test, so he was even bitten on the ear by a trickster. Mr. Tuc wanted to beat this girl so much, but everyone stopped her because she held many clues. His teacher kept laughing without fear, so Gang Moo aimed at his knee. Now he immediately cried and begged for forgiveness. The woman's tears made the gang feel comforted, only to be humiliated and laughed at by the crazy woman. Go Din also wanted to beat her but couldn't, even though she provoked him so much that he used his hands. She confessed that if she confessed, she would be sold to Southeast Asia as a prostitute, so she decided to stay silent. Then Go Dong also came to try to talk to Gina, but the other three were helpless. Go Dong took a chair and sat down, but the crazy guy kicked the chair. Even though the guy was patient, the second time it still kicked him hard in the leg. The third time he still kicked like a steam cleaner. It wasn't until Gunrong asked the fourth time that he stopped, but he played a game of spitting in Gunrong's face. At first, he spoke loudly and swore very loudly. When he heard Gunrong say that everyone knew the hotel's location over the phone, he fell silent. Even though he's a criminal, even when he goes to jail, he still swears non-stop. Only when Gunrong used the Tran and operation did it calm down. It started demanding to be released, but Gunrong also agreed to let it cooperate. Gina confessed that the person who hired her was the chairman's manager. To get information about that person, Gina asked for another cigarette. Then she told him that the manager named Manby used to work for the National Intelligence Agency. But because of money involved, I had to leave. Every time I contact Manby, he changes his number so I can only text and wait. When asked about the drugs put in President Inbom's wine, he brought it up. Gina is scared, but Go Jin reminds her that they are in the same boat now. If you don't confess, your life won't end. So this girl asked Mai to continue talking. There was no way the brothers took him to a hotel room with bodyguards and lock him up without handing over the lock. As soon as we returned home, we saw Hanyu sitting in a corner and knew something was wrong. He was slowly tormenting himself because the captain was still an emergency and was in a coma when he left. Knowing that Hanyu was blaming himself, Go Jin comforted his brother very actively. Then the brothers ordered room service to eat and drink. Only then did Gun Woo regain his spirit to continue protecting everyone. The next morning, the chairman sat down to choose 2 people who he thought would cause trouble for Gun Woo. T-Zone immediately discovered the poster on the betting page announcing the date and time of Gun Woo's competition and informed everyone. But at that time Gun Woo was practicing. The captain finally woke up. He suffered from dehydration and was advised by the doctor to rest or his life would be in danger. But the captain insisted on removing all the bandages to leave, causing tension when Gina still didn't say anything more about the man and kept demanding. As soon as Ganyu returned, he heard the captain's voice asking after him and the peace broke. He announced that he was at the hotel so he could come. Of course, this brother was still in pain all over his body, but he tried to act fine, making everyone extremely sad. Everyone had a meeting to discuss and didn't understand why they discovered the police were coming. The new lady told them that it was probably the receptionists who informed them. While studying, Gun Woo received a message from a villain, causing him to think a lot without paying attention to the captain's words. They decided to let Gun Woo stay at the hotel and increase security because they knew he would be targeted when he went out. At that time, he practiced frantically because his foreign opponent had just arrived in Korea. A big guy with tattoos and a bad guy had just landed. So Gun Woo kept imagining the president in front of him to practice close combat. The captain and golf team were in charge of finding the name of manager Man B, so the captain and his juniors went up to see little Gina just sitting there playing on her phone. He understood the other person's attitude very well. As soon as he saw his eyes narrowed, it showed that Man B had texted that the captain was coming to snatch the phone away. After that, Gina went to the cafe as scheduled, but Man B observed everything. He saw the captain and his juniors coming to that cafe, so he told everyone to come and eliminate the target, the captain and his juniors. The captain signaled her to leave, but as soon as she left, Gina was murdered. The captain kept having to call an ambulance because the new ally who joined the guild was sent away. Unexpectedly, that night, Gun Woo lied and said he was going for a walk but instead went alone to the rendezvous place where the arena was taking place. and he walked in to meet old Chairman Bak Jong with a serious look on his face. This guy began to manipulate Gun-woo that the love of family or friends is fleeting and only money stays in the account forever. Unable to absorb that materialistic mindset, Gun-woo declared that he did not need money and wanted to start the match early. But Bak Jong immediately turned his face when he forced Gun-woo to fight two dirty boxers he had chosen first. If you lose, your entire family will disappear, leaving no trace. Tia Rong suddenly saw the announcement that there were only 10 minutes left until the start of Gun-Yu's match. She quickly went to find the male lead and realized he was lying because he was at a dead end. So she quickly called the captain and everyone to come for reinforcements. Gun-Yu stepped onto the stage to fight with the foreign boxer Jaden. The match was extremely tense and brutal because this was an underground wrestling arena. A thunderous blow from the roof of the pond caused the foreigner to quickly collapse. When the second opponent began to be brought in, the captain just happened to find the location where this group was holding the match. The second guy is famous for playing dirty, causing many difficulties for Han-woo. He continuously attacked Han-woo's body, causing bruises all over his body. However, for the safety of his family, he still stubbornly continued to fight. Everyone watching on the screen felt the tension slipping. Nam Chin was pushed back and missed a beat, making the situation dangerous, but luckily he quickly turned the odds and beat the second opponent to a pulp. Finally, Chairman Bitch Song also agreed to step down from the field. The team leader immediately had his face taken to post on the internal raid newsletter. The two quickly wiped each other like moths. The chairman is truly a worthy opponent as he launches attacks that leave Han-yu stunned. Nam Chin was also unable to return a thunderous blow to his body. Gan-yu was observing his opponent's hands when suddenly he played a trick aimed directly at his eyes. Han-yu's eyes were bleeding and this dirty president took the opportunity to continue to beat him mercilessly. He punched so fast like a machine that he didn't have time to react, only to have Nam Chin hook his jaw so heavily that blood splattered all over his skin. The two of them continuously exchanged tit-for-tat to the point of making a mess. Gun-woo regained his stance so he continuously aimed at the chairman's body and took points. Replacing him, he now uses a trick to delay the match. He leaned heavily on Nam Chin's face and then began to attack his hand frantically. He locked Gun-woo tightly and then threw a dangerous hook. That's why Nam Chin lay down in a miserable place. The it guy announced that the police were coming, so the whole group had to leave within 3 minutes. But the chairman was still aggressive and wanted to finish Gun-woo off. At that time, it was Jun who stood up and begged him to save his life first. Thanks to that, Gun-woo was saved and woke up in the hospital with his right arm in a cast. After that turbulent match, everyone knew all the information about the gang name Baek Song. The captain immediately issued an arrest warrant for Baek Song nationwide. Because the match was filled with the smell of racketeering, the foreign partner wanted to buy back Baek Song's underground tournament as planned. The only thing is that he asked Han-woo to sign a contract for 3 years because he wanted him to be the new star and BC Song had to return home. People wanted to buy back 51% of the shares to take control of life and death, but Baek Song did not agree and chased the customers away. As soon as the it guy reacted, he threatened to kill him immediately, not wanting to lose his aura, so Bak Jong started to get madly bitter. And then he suddenly reported that the police had issued an arrest warrant, making him even more upset. The villains began ordering their juniors to capture Guan-yu's mother to force the male lead to obey. Bak Jong went completely crazy because all his plans did not go as expected. After waking up, Guan-yu was cared for by a doctor and recovered very well. As soon as I returned to my room, Mr. Inbom came to visit. He was still sad because he saw that the room was cramped, so he planned to change to a bigger room. After greeting each other a few times, Inbom left because he had personal business. After that, Gojin visited his younger brother and told the story of his father's confrontation with the old chairman Nam, the purpose of which was so that Gun-woo could learn more about Bak Jong's position in order to find a way to defeat Han. Fu punched with his left hand so powerfully that Han-yu could not even imagine. The two brothers decided to meet Baek Song's old coach because the male lead was burning with ambition to win. The two brothers went home to eat and were scolded by their mother because they kept getting hurt, making her so worried that she couldn't sit still. Manager Man B wants everyone to flee to Thailand. He plans to use a professional dog hunting team to capture Han-yu's mother. He said the price for each name was 300 million. So the total of 3 names was 900 million for Chairman Baek Song-e. Nu Lao only spent money on 2 people and sent Bum with him. Jun's mother informed him that his daughter was injured and was being treated, so Jun allowed him to go. When Jun came to check on the situation and saw that his daughter was okay, everyone surrounded him. Realizing that, Jun hugged his daughter tightly and wanted to run away, but the captain promptly appeared. He advised his soldiers to put down their stun guns to reduce the tension in the atmosphere. Gang Zong said he was also a father and wanted to talk to Jun like two fathers who love their daughter. Gang Zong then explained that if Jun helped the police, he would only receive a life sentence instead of the death penalty and would also have the chance to be pardoned. Teacher Jun was still hesitant when Gang Mu reminded him about his responsibility as a father to wake him up. And then Jun decided to return to the righteous side with the request to protect his family from Baekseong's revenge. Jun began to reveal to the captain that Bak Jong was floating on a yacht so that no one could know his location. If they were to rush in and arrest him right now, Jun would probably be exposed, so everyone would continue to let him act as an undercover cover. It turns out that Manby, whose real name is Real, is outnumbered and used to be a high-ranking police officer, so he's very good at professional tricks. Currently, he is looking for a private jet to flee to Thailand. Everyone also knew that Bak Jong wanted to capture Gunwoo's mother so that he could have a rematch. After the rematch, he will send the golfer on his way right in front of the audience to show off his glory and earn the most money. Jun also confessed that he was outnumbered and was hiring assassins for the first class to capture golfer Yu. At that moment, Baek Song called Jun. Listening to the captain's words, Jun lied about his daughter's condition, making the president completely believe it. Then the tight handshake officially linked Jun to the right side. As for the larger group, he deposited money with the captain and promised to take everyone to Thailand at exactly 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Receiving that news, the chairman ordered Jun to prepare dinner at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. The night after tomorrow, Gunwoo's mother will be taken to the airport and the chairman will also remind Jun to say goodbye to his daughter because this trip will be very long. A young man wearing glasses with the name Shin Hong is an expert sent by his eldest uncle. Accompanying him is an assistant named Dok Han. Shin Hong accidentally heard the conversation when Minute Bomb discussed capturing Bak Jong as well as rescuing Gunwoo's mother. Everyone still kept this a secret because they were afraid the male lead would worry, so he decided to take action himself to protect mother and son while he was recovering. Minute Bomb offered to say goodbye to Baek Song forever to avoid disaster, not to be lenient like with old My Ong Ji before. Hearing that, the infamous cousin felt that he was using him because he always believed in respecting the law. Seeing that his brother was determined to act in his own way and trusting the person he was sent to, he had to retreat. After that, the captain gathered a group of bodyguards to clean up the security. They knew they had to mobilize more forces because they were worried that someone had received money from Baekseong and betrayed them. Suddenly, T-Zone realized that Inspector Jun Hangwoo was in a faraway place, so he might not have been reached by Baekseong's tentacles. The next morning, Hangwoo brought his forces to the captain's headquarters for a meeting to discuss a battle plan. Everyone divided into 3 teams to surround Baekseong's lair. When it was determined that he had just got off the bus and entered the grave, the captain signaled action for a group of people to rush into the main door. They caught the old medicine man who was about to let the dog go wild. The kitchen immediately saw the noise and had it in hand. When everyone rushed in, he began to frantically attack the investigation team with all their inherent ferocity. The police had to use a stun gun to subdue him and handcuff him to the car. Sitting in the car, he looked at the back with doubtful eyes. Cop, his junior, passed by and saw that his big brother had been arrested and did not dare to come in. At that time, Dong then wondered why he had to continue participating in this game and demanded that the guy immediately transfer 500 million in Bitcoin before he would save the boss. Feeling sorry for the chairman, the guy immediately transferred the money. Upon receiving the money, Dong Han immediately texted the Dog San Association to go on a mission with a reward of 200 million. Unexpectedly, when the brother Gangmu often texted, just like Uncle Dong Long, was also in that group and happened to see a familiar place, he immediately became suspicious because the hunters received orders to rescue the chairman, so they sent many trucks to block the path of the police car right in the tunnel. The boys waited and then broke down the door to drag their big brother out. The police were forced to fire stun guns to fight back. Gangmu was also there in time to support and chase away the small group members, but the chairman quickly grabbed the captain's neck, making the situation extremely dangerous. It was with great difficulty that everyone was able to control him and get into another car. Before things were going well, 2 men with horse-faced faces stabbed and slashed the policeman, severely injuring him. Seeing the unstable situation, Jun attacked those 2 guys to save his teammates while the captain still used electric pliers to control Bak Jong. Seeing that the 2-on-1 scene was too much, the captain told Gangmu to help Jun. A heated 2-on-2 fight took place in the middle of the tunnel. Gangmu, with his extensive experience, defeated Otkon. But while worrying about his teammates, the captain got distracted, causing Bak Jong-na to take the opportunity to repeatedly kick him in the head. He ordered his teammates to use the lock to open the gate because he was extremely resentful of Jun's betrayal. Rangbu rushed to stop him and was punched so hard that he collapsed in a pool of blood. He started rushing towards Jun this time. Jun did not flinch because of his daughter and threw breathless punches that made him spit out blood. However, because he had gathered his strength after a long battle, Jun was taught a harsh lesson by the chairman. Because he was famous for playing dirty, his actions were extremely impolite. In the end, Jun passed away due to a severe neck injury. The outnumbered chairman had to bring back the male lead's mother. Surprisingly, a bodyguard that the captain trusted was there, traitor when he handed over her room. This traitor only asked him to show mercy to the captain. When more people began to disrupt the signal, T-Dong discovered it and alerted the bodyguards. Outside, the bodyguards began to carry out their duties but were secretly played by thugs. The mighty force caused each person to fall down in pain. Gojin heard the noise and was extremely worried, but the mother stopped her. When there was only one last bodyguard left, Gojin rushed out. He sent the villain off and was targeted by a fat guy. The bodyguard and Gojin worked together well to beat the fat guy. Because he was so carried away, he punched the wall and got his hand stuck there, giving Gojin a chance to finish it off. In the end, only he and the charming Boomer remained. The two crashed into each other like two trucks to pay off old debts. Gojin threw heavy punches, but because his wound had not yet healed, he was beaten to a pulp by the boom. When the villain was about to strike the finishing blow, Gunwoo's mother appeared and begged him to help him and agreed to follow. Gojin painfully begged his mother not to leave, but she coldly turned her back, leaving him completely hopeless. Gunjong came to see Jun for the last time in the morgue, while the captain suffered a brain hemorrhage and was undergoing life-or-death surgery. Gojin endured the pain to inform Gunwoo that his mother had been taken away by Boom. At this moment, Uncle Zongzang heard that his two nephews were in danger, so he opened an arsenal full of hot goods that matched his assassin skills to prepare for battle. That night, Guozin came to visit and saw that Gangmu had regained consciousness. This brother revealed that he called the market for help but still kept Uncle Zongzang's identity a secret. The next morning, the two brothers returned home to pack up their things. Baby Minute A, Mr. Zun's daughter, and his mother were also taken there for safety. Gandong met his boss to hope for support in taking Andon's family to a more secure place. But Boss Baktin not only disagreed but also thought he was doing something outrageous. Realizing that his superiors were too cold-blooded towards his comrade's sacrifice, Gandong quietly left without saying another word. Chairman Inbom had an emergency meeting with assassin Sin Hong. At this time, he offered Inbom a plan to create a classic match to lure Baekdong to bet all his assets on it, by proposing a match with Gunwoo with a maximum of 100 billion for each side to push the total value up to 200 billion. Surely a greedy person like Bak Jong will not be able to resist and throw money into the door. Having a plan but having no luck, Inbong went to Gunwoo's house to discuss. They decided to save Gunwoo's mother by asking her husband, who was working in the intelligence department, to block Bak Jong's way out of Korea. At the same time, he borrowed Gunwoo's hand in the rematch to bring that dirty player into the light and punish him. Guan Yu determinedly nodded and followed Inbong's words. At that time, Gojin was sitting in deep thought when he saw an uncle parking his car near the house waving at him. The guy immediately called the male lead down to verify his identity, and then they both burst into tears when they met Uncle Dung Dong again after many years of separation. Seeing the bruised and wounded faces of his two grandchildren, Uncle Dung Dong felt even more sad and heartbroken. Inside the house, the two brothers recounted everything that happened, including the story of the mother who had to follow the group of people and disappear. Go Jin is the one who blames himself the most for not being able to risk his life to the end to protect his mother. Uncle Dung Zong understood this feeling better than anyone else, so he tried his best to comfort Go Jin so he could regain his fighting spirit. He then sent a message showing that he was also in the Sandog group and confessed that for his livelihood, he had to do everything. After listening, the two brothers realized that the leader was trying to kill people to rescue Bak Jong. Because we were in the same boat, everyone took Uncle Dung Dong down to meet Gandong to discuss important matters. At first, Gandong was still skeptical and did not trust Uncle Dung Dong very much. It was only when the two Nam Chin brothers spoke up to reassure him that the atmosphere calmed down. Then Uncle Dung Dong let everyone see with their own eyes his careful preparations to be ready to assist because Uncle Capital was not afraid to get his hands dirty. So Uncle Dung Dong went to meet the old medicine man and gave him a good beating. After that, he used salt water and a spatula. Just looking at it was enough to see how scary the pressure trick was to force him to tell the whole truth. The next morning, as soon as he received news from the group about recruiting San, He continued to apply for a bodyguard position to penetrate deeper into the enemy's lair. Meanwhile, Dong then silently infiltrated the airport wearing a black hat and glasses to disguise himself. Thanks to that, he successfully discovered that intelligence forces were heavily deployed everywhere. The chairman was in hot water, so he continuously put pressure and threatened to outnumber them because he still couldn't find a way out. The next morning, Gojun offered to practice with Han Wu because he predicted Boom would also be on the ring. The two brothers begged President Inbom to find a way to save their mother. At that moment, the chairman called the larger number. This guy picked up the phone with an extremely arrogant attitude until Inbom mentioned the matter of shallow money before he finally gave up the phone. Hearing Inbom propose a life-and-death match for a maximum of 100 billion, the dirty president immediately pulled out Han Yu's mother as a bargaining chip. He directly criticized the F to convert 100 billion to Bitcoin and immediately transfer it to him, otherwise her life would be difficult to preserve. Hearing Inbom's encouraging words, Baek Song intended to harm Han Yu's mother, but unexpectedly, the larger crowd promptly stopped him and announced that he would take charge of this matter. Thanks to that, he was given the final mission by the shy president in the next 10 days to find a way to escape the border. When everyone was worried about whether or not the agitation would harm Han Yu's mother, a larger number suddenly called back with a gentler tone than his. He announced that he would arrange everything without needing the president's side to spend any money. Instead, he will take Han Yu's mother near the competition venue. If he loses, he will release his son. If he wins, his side will take all the money and go abroad. They also warned not to let the police intervene for the safety of the hostages. That's why the two brothers went to the teacher who used to teach them to learn the religion in 10 short days. The two brothers expressed their determination to attack him because he had kidnapped their mother, so Mr. Choi agreed to teach him everything. He pointed out the most exquisite moves, especially the flashy jab that made Han Wu immediately remember the attack of the seaweed. The key color located in the corner is extremely mischievous when it comes to being able to read the opponent's thoughts. It turned out that his painful past had trained him to have that sharp instinct. After listening, Han Wu began to practice furiously with Mr. Choi. So he taught the two brothers dangerous moves to overcome and completely stop the flow. Go Zong went to his senior to ask for help and received a nod of agreement. After that, everyone gathered for a meeting to discuss the location where the two main male brothers were preparing to compete. They had determined that this case must be truly successful in order to save their most important relatives. The two sides began a rigorous training process that made their muscles stronger to increase their weight and endurance. Both sides trained day and night non-stop to achieve perfect skills for the final battle. The two brothers knew that the other guys often attached iron bars to their hands, so this time Han Wu decided to also equip them to confront them for everyone's safety. Because if you want to fight a beast, you have to be even scarier than the beast. That day, Mr. Dung Long received a message in the chat group and immediately sent the location to the police. He equipped himself with a bunch of hot goods and then headed straight to the abandoned building where the villains chose to use as their life-and-death fighting arena. Uncle Dung started taking numbers to get in and realized they were giving out numbers to assign each person to manage a corner. Anyone who leaves their position is considered a traitor and will be immediately destroyed. The plan begins when the hired sand dogs move to the designated location. When the boxes were brought in, they were outnumbered and reported to his boss and then personally went down to welcome President Inbom and the two main male brothers. They searched and confiscated everyone's phones. The IT guy gave Quirrell code to scan to receive money and thanks to that, T-Zone successfully penetrated his phone. After finishing the story, the two brothers went inside carrying the prepared pieces of iron instead of refusing like last time. When the fairy announced that the 38th match was about to start, Uncle Dung immediately approached the guy standing next to him and asked for a cigarette. Taking advantage of the opportunity to ask for fire, he immediately sent him away. He quickly moved to another floor and used a dagger to eliminate each guy in turn. His skills are still extremely sharp as ever. He continued to move upstairs to the ironworks and this time encountered a guy with much higher skills. Even though there were too many people and someone aimed at his feet, making it difficult for him, he still successfully pushed them all away to save Han Wu's mother. Surprisingly, the person sitting there was not her but a fake assassin. She started to attack, injuring Mr. Dung in the stomach, but he did not give up and gave her a fatal blow. He then called Gunzong to report that Nam Chin's mother seemed to be locked in the next building on the top floor and was carefully shielded. Uncle Dung was seriously injured but still urgently begged Gundong to save Golyu's mother. Upon receiving the news, Gundong immediately informed the team leader and immediately went to rescue. He found her, but there were more people there holding her hostage. He forced Gundong to put down the gun but still refused to let go. In that moment of life and death, Gundong steadfastly aimed straight at his head and successfully opened fire to send him down to the golden stream. In the end, the guy was able to save his mother and kiss her safely. As soon as the chairman appeared inside, Gozan also walked in, causing the owl guy to lose his footing. His characteristic jumping style at the beginning of the match was used again, making the opponent lose their composure. The enraged chairman began to attack continuously, causing Gozan to collapse as soon as he entered the fight. However, this brother still stubbornly stood up and continued to fight without fear. Sadly, he had to lie down again, and this time his cheek was deeply torn. Nam Chin was very sad, but he had to suppress his heart and let his brother continue to do his best. Even though Gozan couldn't stand, he still tried to hold on, only to have to lie down again. Once again Gozan woke up and took the golden opportunity to hit the chairman with a spade hit, so he had to pull out so the medical staff could hold it for him. It seems like the two brothers are using a strategy to target Baek Song to sap his strength and make him exhausted. Gozan was a great success, and now everything was left to his younger brother Gun Woo to take care of. So Gun Yu started entering the ring to compete with Ten Boom. As soon as he got inside, Gun Yu loudly encouraged him to go out onto the field, but Ten Boom rushed in and immediately got punched in the air. He continued to attack but missed a few times and then aimed at Gun Yu's ribs. Nam Chin beat him like a machine when many new enemies were packed into each attack. Ten Boom rose up and began to attack Gun Yu mercilessly. Nam Chin immediately took a stance and waited for the opportunity to get up and push him away. The guy took a deep breath and officially said goodbye to Boom. Despite the excruciating pain, Boom had to lie down in one place. With his brother's support, Gun Woo aimed straight at Boom's hand and took the points. In the end, he was taken out and the dirty and cowardly president of Miu entered the field again. This time he punched very hard, but Gun Woo aimed at the weak spot, which was the bookmark on his face. He smoothly applied the straight punching and jaw hook techniques that his teacher had taught him. The success caused the foul-playing chairman to continuously receive extremely painful blows that distorted the pieces with each punch. Twice he hit the spade on the old wound, making the chairman completely dizzy. Hanyu took advantage of that opportunity to continuously attack and smash the opponent. Because he was about to lose, the chairman aggressively hugged Hanyu and threw him on the floor. He aimed at Hanyu's shoulder blade to attack, making it impossible for him to escape. The pain was excruciating, but Hanyu still tried to hit the villain's legs to escape. One of his arms trembled, but when his opponent rushed forward, he still used another hook to hit the injured man to continue fighting. Gun Woo was punched but still resolutely hooked the book and returned the blow to the shoulder of Miu's dirty trick to finish him off. The fight gradually came to an end when both of them were tired, but Gun Woo still successfully attacked the attacker and then he knocked him down, lying in a limp heap on the floor. This guy ended up being a huge success. So the police began to move in to arrest all the remaining Lolas. The two brothers met their mother again in overwhelming happiness when their plan was a complete success. At the last minute, the odds turned upside down when the police convoy was on the road and was caught in a tire leak trap. They cut off the power to the tunnel, making the atmosphere pitch black. It turned out that Hong's killer had plotted to rob the gang by spraying tranquilizer gas at the police. Finally, the image of Baek Rong being defeated was sent to Minute Bomb along with the amount of Bitcoin that Tem Rong had stolen. After everything, Gun Woo was haunted many times, so he often called his brother and mother's names while sleeping. The two brothers went to the kitchen to cook noodles because they were hungry, which startled their mother because she thought the house had been broken into again. Only Inbom knows what happened to Baekseong and Gun Woo is still worried about his return. But then the two brothers ate noodles and sang together to train a dog extermination squad to protect peace. Back when Baekseong was still alive, because he refused to reveal his protector, everyone used strong measures. Because he was afraid of losing his life, Bak Jong declared that he was backed by Chai Chana. Hearing that, Shin Hong asked Bak Jong to be his dog to help Chai Chana smuggle tons of Mai-Tu into Korea. Bak Jong agreed to be a sand dog, so the girl with short hair started disguising him. It turns out that Shin Hong is not simply an ordinary hired assassin. At the end of the movie, a soldier visited Mr. Jun with a surprised look on his face.